Super Television. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201 Mothership Assembly. As for the movie, it may not be important in the past, because there's a system that can query the history of time and space. But now, with the appearance of characters in the Lonely Lamp universe, the system seems to be popular overnight, and the existence of the movie has become a different and effective tool. Because the history searched by the system is only a rough process direction. It is a skeleton of time and space, and it is not possible to query every detail clearly. As for the movie, although its mapping angle is a bit small and cannot be 100% trusted, it is just right for the details left by the system, and has a good compensatory effect. The 7th level system has the function of querying the history of time and space. As both parties to the cooperation, I am willing to pay some price to exchange for the sharing of each other's intelligence. I wonder if Mr. Kigaku agrees with this. Yisai spoke, interrupting Li Jing's thinking. Since it is a cooperation, intelligence sharing is natural. As for the cost, as long as you can do your best when taking action, that's enough. Of course, it should be like this. Yisai and Li Jing looked at each other and smiled at each other in tacit understanding. There was an inexplicable sense of tacit understanding hidden in it, which was not revealed. Li Jing and Yisai were still discussing the cooperation, while S.H.I.E.L.D. launched an emergency operation. Many superheroes were gathered together, and the space carrier officially set sail from the Atlantic Ocean and took off. Iron Man Tony Stark, Hulk Bruce Banner, Captain America Steven Rogers, Black Widow Natasha, and the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., the only level 10 agent Nick Fury. In a conference room on the space carrier, several people sat in their own seats without saying a word, just waiting for Nick Fury, the only one standing, to give a final answer. Things are more serious than we thought. In addition to the guy who claims to be God, we have other hidden enemies. You didn't tell me this when you came here. Tony shrugged and rolled his eyes. The smile on his lips just appeared and then fell again. It was obvious that he was mocking him. There are still enemies? What enemies? Steven frowned slightly. Things were indeed more complicated than he thought. From the previous explanation, he had already noticed that the person who stole the cosmic cube was not simple, but he didn't expect that there would be other enemies besides this. It is even more impossible to say that Nick Fury is lying, because there is no need at all. Let's take a look at this first. Fury saw the reactions of the people present one by one, but he did not explain anything immediately. Instead, he called his adjutant Hill next to him and asked her to put a silver briefcase on the desk between the people. Ding. Hill stepped back, and the briefcase opened automatically, flipped up and adjusted. In almost a short moment, the briefcase turned into a high-tech display device. What's in here? Without looking at the introduction on the screen, Bruce Banner casually pointed to a transparent box at the bottom of the screen. It looked empty, nothing inside. You should know how to operate this machine better than me. Let's see for ourselves. The little thing inside is alive. Fury didn't step forward, but stretched out his hand to signal everyone to watch for themselves. Tony wouldn't think about these things. He stretched out his hand and pulled the instrument on the table in front of him. With a light press of his finger, an operating display screen immediately popped out of the instrument. Beep. Tony pressed his finger and operated skillfully. It only took a few breaths. The people next to him stretched their heads to watch the display screen and it began to change. Beep. What is this? What the hell? Is it really nanoworm technology? Nanoworm? Nanoworm? Steven and Natasha looked at the strange bugs displayed on the screen, and then turned their attention to Bruce Banner, who spoke. Bruce Banner hadn't spoken yet, but Tony, who was adjusting the instrument, spoke first. This is an extremely high-end technological product. Judging from its design, it should only have the ability to monitor, otherwise it wouldn't be caught so easily, right? Tony said, looking up at Nick Fury, who was standing beside him. Yes, although we don't know who or what the other party is, these nanoworms have already infiltrated various areas of S.H.I.E.L.D., and these little things can be captured by us. Magnetic field, Bruce Banner said. Yes, Fury nodded. Although the main ability of these nanoworms is to monitor, They also have the ability to devour any matter, even energy, to capture these little things. We also rely on the force of the magnetic field to keep them fixed and unable to touch anything. Is this thing a biological thing, or a machine? Stephen was frozen for 70 years, and when he woke up, the time had already passed from World War II to after the 20th century. For these high technologies, he was really an antique. It's essentially a machine. But, everyone, come and take a look at this material. Anyway, I haven't seen it before. Tony casually adjusted it, and the instrument screen on the desktop was turned to everyone. What is this? Stephen couldn't understand it at all, while Natasha and Nick Fury looked at Tony, waiting for his final explanation. As for Bruce Banner, as soon as he saw the picture on the screen, he began to frown and think. This is an extremely tough non-metallic material, and it also has the recovery function of memory metal, Tony said, reaching out and pressing a few times on the instrument, and the screen showed a nanoworm that was magnified tens of millions of times, and was immediately twisted into two halves by the force of the magnetic field. However, the destruction that everyone imagined did not happen. The two halves of the nanoworm's corpse turned into a colorless liquid in just a short breath, and then recombined into two slightly smaller nanoworms. Then, before everyone had time to speak, the two slightly smaller nanoworms had actually returned to their original size. This means that the nanoworms that were split into two halves by the magnetic field were not destroyed, but with the help of such a force, they became two at once, just like creatures that can split and survive. This is just one. What if there are multiple ones? Doesn't that mean that this thing can't be destroyed at all, and can split and grow exponentially in a short period of time? This is totally wrong. Where does the energy for its splitting and growth come from? Even if it has the same properties as creatures like earthworms, there should at least be a limit, right? Chapter 202 Nordic London. Do you know about solar charging? It seems that you have really slept too long, old antique. Tony glanced at Stephen, and then did not forget to make another sarcastic remark. Solar energy? Are you saying that the energy of these nanoworms comes from sunlight? Ignoring Tony's ridicule, Stephen spoke again. Compared with those so-called face, he wanted to figure out these problems first. Puff. Before Tony spoke, Hill, the adjutant who had always been serious, couldn't help but cover his mouth at this time. Sorry. Seeing that everyone's eyes were shifted to him, Hill waved his hand as an apology and turned to sort out the information. Tony means that these nanoworms can use the same effect as the charging process of solar panels to supply the energy needed for their own division and operation. Simply put, they can absorb the free energy and the air as consumption. Fury answered Stephen's misunderstanding. This time, he didn't want to embarrass Stephen, a powerful assistant who had just been pulled in. Let's leave these things to someone else to consider. The most important thing is, what should we do now? Natasha looked up and only looked at Nick Fury, the highest officer in the room. This is also the purpose of my gathering everyone here. The Earth is no longer safe. We have too many unknown enemies. If we still fight on our own like before, then I don't need to say the final result. I think everyone should be able to think of it. Be direct. I will only say these things when I see the most annoying children, Tony said casually, leaning back with some disapproval. Ignoring Tony's gesture, Fury spoke again. We must build our own team, a team that fights for the Earth. The cosmic cube must not fall into the hands of such dangerous people, and we must also take the best precautions against enemies who are hidden deeper. Therefore, the first step is to find the whereabouts of the cosmic cube. Dr. Bruce, you are most familiar with gamma rays, and the next job is up to you. Bruce Banner nodded. The current situation does not allow for much consideration. Compared with his own threats, Bruce Banner really wants to do something meaningful for mankind. This can be regarded as a kind of compensation for the past. Tony, you are the one who knows the most about machinery here. The research work of nanoworms will be handed over to you. I hope you can find out the information of the organization behind the nanoworms in the shortest time. I'm not your agent. Tony complained as usual, but he didn't refuse. Nick Fury automatically filtered out this irrelevant nonsense and turned his head to look at the last Stephen Rogers. Captain America, a soul-level figure, the first superhero, a role model and benchmark established during World War II. For such a man, His greatest role is not because of his military power, but the symbol of his identity. Although World War II has ended for decades, and those who remembered Stephen earlier are now almost dead, however, Fury still has great expectations for Stephen, wanting him to have a second spring again and become a modern team core like in World War II, a soul-level figure. Captain, fighting is inevitable, and the arrangements after that will depend on you. Stephen didn't answer, but just nodded gently. If you ask who is the dumbest person present, I'm afraid no one can be chosen, but if you ask who is the smartest, Tony and Bruce Banner are the first choice in research. As for killing tricks and conspiracy, Natasha, who is a top agent, and Nick Fury are the first choice. However, if you want to say who can see the situation most clearly and have a big picture, it must be the old antique Stephen Rogers. Stephen's background is not good, and he has not undergone any professional systematic learning and training, but he has something that others don't have, that is, a clear mind, because he knows what he wants, what he should do, and what he can do. Because of this, he has perseverance and strength that others can't match, and has more dedicated efforts and hard work than ordinary people. Also because of this, a clear mind at all times can enable him to have a big picture far beyond ordinary people. Similarly, this is also the main reason why Fury chose Stephen as the core of the team. Thousands of meters high, the invisible spacecraft carrier was still flying, and the newly formed team, which had not yet been named, was also working together to calculate and experiment on the whereabouts of the cosmic cube and the research on nanoworms. As for Li Jing and I, after the two sides had agreed on many details, they separated and started their own actions again. There was still some time before the final battle of the cosmic cube, and Li Jing was not in the mood to participate in it. At this moment, he was led by the new team to an abandoned factory. London, the capital of the United Kingdom, is the largest city in Europe and is ranked as the world's largest financial center along with New York, USA. The abandoned factory found by Li Jing and others is on the edge of this large city. Marvel movies, let alone Li Jing, have always been a mystery to all the audiences on Earth, because there are so many unsolved mysteries. For example, regarding the settings of the Infinity Stones, is the stone on Loki's scepter the Mind Stone? Then how can it have the same origin as the cosmic cube, and even use the power of the cosmic cube to open a space-time tunnel in other places? The cosmic cube is said to be a space gem, but isn't the procedure to use it to open a space-time tunnel too complicated? Even the evil god Loki has no way to control it. In addition, the ultimate purpose of Li Jing's coming here is the ether particle, the legendary power gem. However, judging from the movie alone, the power of the ether particle is far from the legendary power gem, and even against Thor, it can't be said to be a crushing blow. Moreover, when the ether particle first appeared, its accompanying power was the changeable space. The weird changes in space were even weirder than the space ability of the cosmic cube. Yes, weird, not powerful. With the existence of the level of the infinity gems, when no one is controlling it, it is really hard to tell the specific survival of the fittest, or even the detailed abilities they have or should have. Li Jing and his 8 companions walked in this deserted abandoned factory. Their target was a dilapidated building that was neither conspicuous nor featureless. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 203 Ether Particles. Ether particles, this kind of power that is said to be able to overturn the universe. Li Jing didn't know much more about it than others. At most, he was just like an ordinary audience, and he had only seen its power on the screen. But the impression it left on Li Jing was some dirty words and vocabulary that were unworthy of the name and exaggerated. What absolute power, what power to overturn the universe, what invincibility in the physical system, nothing was revealed. Is it that the strength of the user, the Dark Elf leader, is too weak to use the powerful power of ether particles? If so, then how useless is the original force of the Dark Elf leader who can suppress Thor with the help of ether? Stepping on the stairs, Li Jing shook his head and laughed slightly. Regardless of whether the number of scenes in the movie is true or not, and whether the dark elf leader who claims to be the ruler of the universe is really so useless, everything will be proved by facts. Witnessing with your own eyes is more convincing than hearsay. Boss, we're here. Yeah, Li Jing nodded slightly. This is a very dilapidated corridor. Although the place is small, the space here is abnormal. Even without being reminded by others, Li Jing, who has studied it deeply, has already felt it. Sky-Eye, detect the geological structure here, especially the place below 1,000 meters. Okay, boss. Sky-Eye responded, and it didn't take long before he made a voice report to Li Jing again. Boss, the geological structure here is indeed somewhat special, especially at a depth of several thousand meters underground. The deeper you go, the higher the energy contained in the soil. This energy seems to be the power emitted by some ancient seal. Seal? Li Jing was slightly stunned, and his perception ability burst out, directly penetrating into the ground. Detect the specific age of this energy. Yes, boss. Time passed again, and no one present spoke. Boss, the age of these energies is about 6,000 years. Although they are slowly dissipating, they are also a relatively high-end energy. Yes, Li Jing nodded. The detection data of the Sky-Eye was consistent with what he had sensed. Based on the known information, there was a high probability that the ether particles were buried in the underground space thousands of meters deep here, and the scattered energy was probably the seal that the Asa divine realm had set for the space where the ether particles were located. Until now, thousands of years have passed, and the power of these seals has been weakened a lot. In Li Jing's perception, these seals are not sealing anything, but playing a role of covering up. Indeed, the power of ether particles is too strong, and it is impossible to seal them completely even if you want to. And most importantly, the people of the Asa divine realm still don't want people to discover the existence of ether particles. Guard here. Anyone who enters, kill. Yes, sir. Everyone bowed their heads and accepted the order. Among them were 4 newcomers, Kakashi and Akaichi, and in addition, there was a white woman with an unwilling look on her face. This woman is undoubtedly the girlfriend of Thor. At this time, she has been completely controlled by the nanoworms. Although she is unwilling in her heart, the effect of the nanoworms is enough to make her unable to utter a word. As for bringing this woman here, it is just to ensure foolproof preparations, but now it seems that it is useless. Li Jing used the time and space ninjutsu to disappear. Those seals were not enough to stop him at all. When he appeared again, he was already in a dark sealed space. This place is already several thousand meters deep underground, surrounded by some uneven rocks and metal veins. However, Li Jing did not see the existence of ether particles. With a move in his heart, Li Jing's perception immediately spread out, carefully checking every inch of space here. It didn't take long for Li Jing's mouth to slightly hook up. As expected, the space where the ether particles exist does not belong to the Earth, but the method of space applying space is used to store the ether particles in double insurance. In this state, even if the seal completely disappeared in the past few thousand years, the technology on Earth would not be able to detect any energy reaction, unless the technology on Earth at that time had reached the level of exploring beyond space. The time-space ninjutsu was activated again, and Li Jing's disappeared figure appeared in a dark space full of stones in an instant. Everything here was full of vicissitudes, and there were ancient carvings and paintings on the stones. It should be this. Looking at the stone cube in front of him, Li Jing's heart was inevitably moved. Although the ether particles, such a powerful thing, are also external forces, it is better to hold them in his hands as a trump card than to let them be covered with dust as history passes. It was like a sharp cry, penetrating Li Jing's mind. Li Jing was slightly dazed, and he woke up in a daze. Then he looked at the direction of the ether particles again, but his brows were frowned, and he was no longer as calm as before. How can the ether particles, the legendary power gem, have the power to control people's minds? If it weren't for Li Jing's Dharma image that had survived the hard demon and was now extremely stable, if it was an ordinary person standing here just now, then that attack would have been enough to be controlled by the power of ether. The power that penetrates the mind, although weak, is extremely pure. Even with Li Jing's mental power, he was almost attacked by the ether particles when he was not prepared. "I really underestimated you." Li Jing sneered slightly and walked to the front of the stone cube. This cube is not small, it is as thick as 10 people surrounded and several feet high. And in the middle of the upper and lower layers, there is a blood-red light flowing. Without hesitation, Li Jing stretched out one hand and slowly approached the blood-red position, but his left hand, however, formed a seal behind his back. Hutilda, as if blood is flowing, the blood-red energy appears in a liquid state, and it has already flowed towards Li Jing's fingers in a breath. Li Jing groaned, and the blood-red liquid quickly seeped in along his fingertips. HMPH. Suddenly, Li Jing snorted coldly, and the yin-yang seal that had been set up on his left hand was immediately pressed against his right arm. Sizzle tilde. It was like forged steel entering water, and a few wisps of green smoke rose, and Li Jing's right arm was immediately entangled by runes, Ain tilde, and other scattered wool that penetrated the soul. Even though Li Jing was extremely alert, he was still instantly dazed by this attack. Looking for death, Li Jing's face became even colder, and the pattern in his eyes had already changed to the eye of all things. The yin-yang seal could not completely block the power of the ether. Although Li Jing had been mentally prepared, he did not expect that the ether that was just in a state of no one controlling it would be so powerful. Chapter 204 Heart of the Universe. Infinity Stones. Although each one has incredible power, it also has a lot to do with the power of the user. It is said that it can subvert the universe, but it only says that the Infinity Stones have this potential. If the user's own power does not meet the standard, then the so-called subversion of the universe is just a joke. But even so, the threat posed to Li Jing by the uncontrolled ether particles at this time is no less than a big battle. It was not until Li Jing finally used the Wanxian Tanf technique that the ether particles sealed in his right arm slowly calmed down, as if he exhaled a breath of foul air. Li Jing waved his hand and put the stone cube storing the ether particles into the tattoo space. Just after activating the space-time ninjutsu, Li Jing's heart moved. This time, the energy consumption was more than half higher than usual. Is it because of the ether particles? Wow! The space rippled, and Li Jing's figure appeared in the dilapidated corridor again. "My lord." "Well, let's go." Li Jing waved his hand. Things went unexpectedly smoothly. It was so easy to get one of the powerful Infinity Stones. This was a good thing. However, outside the Earth's space that Li Jing could not perceive, the wheel of history had already accelerated. Buzz in the silent universe, in a remote meteorite zone without any life, a space battleship that looked like a steel fortress suddenly lit up with a blood-red light. The battleship was extremely large and towering like a mountain. Its black shell was like a monster that had just awakened and showed a ferocious face. In the battleship's main control room, a humanoid object hanging in the air trembled slightly. The surrounding instruments started up, and the blood-red light was emitted, and the head device of the humanoid object was also contracted and opened layer by layer like a fan blade. A white-haired man suddenly opened his eyes. He was a dark elf, and the leader of the dark elves. He had a high nose bridge, pointed ears, and pale skin. It was obvious that he had lived in the dark environment for too long. Shaking slightly, the elf leader broke away from the life support device behind him. He was wearing a close-fitting armor and had a slender figure. He had slowly adapted to the side effects of years of sleep while walking. The warship was huge and boundless. The elf leader strolled into a huge space. All the instruments here were still functioning normally. Looking around, a large number of dark elves also woke up from their sleep and were getting out of the life support device. Ether particles, is there something wrong? Wake us up. Celestial bodies gather, but time. The dark elf leader Malekith, with a grim face, whispered to himself, "The great mission of returning the universe to darkness is as deep as the mark deep into the bone marrow. However, there is still a long time before the next celestial body convergence, and the ether particles actually awakened the dark elves at this time. Obviously, there must be some unexpected problems. The dark elves were born in the darkness before the universe was born. Thousands of years ago, the leader Malekith wanted to activate the power of the ether particles and drag the boundless universe into eternal darkness again. But after years of war with the Ezer, Malekith finally failed. The ether particles obtained by the Ezra were also buried deep underground by the original king of the gods and sealed. Time has passed, and thousands of years have passed. Under the call of the ether particles, the Dark Elves have resurrected and returned again. This time, the war between the major forces will be started again. In the Ezra, Thor had already received the news that Loki used the cosmic cube. After discussing with his father, Odin, the Lord of Asgard, Thor once again used the Rainbow Bridge to reach the Earth, wanting to personally stop and persuade Loki. On Earth, after Jing obtained the ether particles, he once again practiced in seclusion. The power of the ether particles is too strong and violent, and there is also some vague and pure will in it. Therefore, even if Jing has set a double seal, the power of the ether particles cannot be completely blocked. Not to mention using the power of the ether particles, if this problem is not solved, the ether particles will not only not become Jing's weapon and trump card, but will become a big obstacle to his ability to exert his strength. Seal, subdue, and shape. What Jing has to do is to use the ether particles as a weapon, rather than letting it enter his body and coexist with it. In the secret room, with a cold shout, Jing forced the ether particles in his right arm to slowly enter a piece of silver liquid that was flowing endlessly. This piece of silver liquid is a magical substance called Heart of the Universe. It is worth nearly 30,000 points, just the size of a finger. The Heart of the Universe is also extremely powerful. It has the ability to strengthen and shape. It was originally purchased by Jing to upgrade the yin-yang sword fan or rebuild the Hades armor. Until most of the energy of the ether particles has penetrated into the heart of the universe. With its incomplete will, it seems to have noticed its own situation. Another attack on the soul is directed at Jing. This time, it is more fierce than the previous two times. HMPH, Nether Flame. Buzz Jing's eyes moved, and a green light shot directly at the location of the ether particles, even completely including the heart of the universe. The green flame burned, and the counterattack of the ether particles doubled again. Jing kept his mind tightly and was not moved by external objects at all. Then he took out the yin-yang sword fan from the tattoo space. Yang fire, rise. Other fan opened and swung violently. A blazing red flame burned out of thin air, enveloping the ether particles including the nether fire and the heart of the universe. Yin fire, rise. Another flap. This time the dark side of the yin-yang sword fan slightly lit up, and then a great cold flame flowed out again, directly covering all existences including the previous yang fire. Divide. The words came true. 3 different flames kept flowing around the heart of the universe that had completely swallowed the ether particles, and then the 3 flames shuttled and changed, forming 3 layers of light circles inside and outside. The outermost layer is gray, the middle is red, the inner circle is green, and the core is the silver heart of the universe that keeps flowing. This method of forging is an advanced forging technique specially prepared by Jing to forge the heart of the universe. Group number 170.756.165. Chapter 205 Refining Equipment. It is a method of dividing 3 different kinds of strange fire into the power of heaven, earth and man, with yin and yang fire as the main attack and blockade, and soul fire as the auxiliary and soul shaping, and finally finalizing it with the user's own ability, which is regarded as the final treasure. This kind of practice does not necessarily have to use the kinds of fire that Jing has, as long as the properties are composite, because this level of forging method is not the highest level of this set of forging methods. The highest level of forging method requires the collection of 9 kinds of the highest level of fire to be truly used. This secret method is also a very efficient high-end existence even if it is used to forge other objects. Buzz the 3 color flames flow, and the reincarnation is endless. The yin fire is extremely cold and yin for blocking and shaping, the yang fire is extremely hard and yang for calcining and containing, and the netherworld fire is weird and illusory for warming and calming the mind. The 3 flames do not interfere with each other, and burst out their own energy in a strange and regular way. These energies are transformed layer by layer and then directly reach the core part in the middle, the heart of the universe. Jing's mind moved, and the 3 flames changed immediately. The changes around the outer periphery of the heart of the universe immediately became a three-dimensional fire ring. Refining weapons is not that easy, even if it is done with this advanced technique called 9-ring flame forging. It still takes 3 consecutive days, and it must not be stopped in the middle, otherwise it will not only fail, but also may suffer a lot of backlash. Ether particles, one of the infinite gems, have enough power to be called the destruction of heaven and earth. It is impossible to be so simple to forge a weapon with such an existence. 3 days is too short. Even if the forging fails this time, Li Jing has already made psychological preparations. Because he is just a beginner in forging weapons, and has not undergone any systematic learning, not to mention the amplification formations added to the weapons when forging weapons. If the heart of the universe itself does not have a natural formation that will automatically enhance the power of the forged weapons, it would be difficult for Li Jing to start this time. Otherwise, if a waste product is forged again, it is better to choose not to do it as soon as possible. As time passed, Li Jing continued to refine the weapon without distraction, and the confrontation between SHIELD and the evil god Loki changed again. In order to obtain the main materials for opening the time-space tunnel and to cover up the facts to delay time for the plan, Loki used himself as bait and was captured by the newly formed Avengers team and escorted to all the space carriers of SHIELD. And I and his group in the Lonely Light universe also made a plan at this time, ready to seize the cosmic cube at a critical period. As for the plan to use Li Jing as a pathfinder, I didn't expect it at all now, because he already had a more reliable way. 3 days is extremely short for ordinary people, but for the forces that are racing against time, this time is enough for many things to happen. S.H.I.E.L.D. has not yet found the exact location of the cosmic cube, but Hawkeye, the 9th-level agent who was rebelled by Loki using the Mind Stone, led the assembled troops to launch a sneak attack on the space carrier. The space carrier is over 1,000 meters long and is divided into 2 single-lane runways, which can carry hundreds of aircraft at an altitude of tens of thousands of meters at the same time. This behemoth powered by a nuclear reactor was almost destroyed and killed by a small team led by Hawkeye. Moreover, the newly formed Avengers team also fought in all directions, and even fought against each other. As for the evil god Loki, he was detained for less than 24 hours and escaped successfully again. In just 3 days, many events have already happened in the outside world, and Li Jing, who was refining weapons in the secret room, has also reached the final stage at this time. Li Jing put his hands together, and the 3 flames flowing outside the heart of the universe also shrank together. Strange fluctuations were heard. It was the last moment. Even with Li Jing's current strength, he felt a little bit of difficulty. With this level of refining, it was wishful thinking to want to completely refine the power of ether. Close. The heart of the universe kept flowing, and suddenly fixed from the void, and then slowly changed and took shape, and a thick ring shape appeared. This ring was wider as a whole, bright silver, and mysterious blood-colored patterns automatically formed on it. A blood-colored gem slowly emerged and was embedded in the middle of the ring. Get up! Li Jing raised his hand, and the ring sank into his brow like an illusion, and then appeared next to the Dharma image in the spiritual ocean. Refining, the early stage is just shaping, qualitative, and sealing, and the later stage is nurturing, consolidation, and tempering, especially for infinite gems such as ether particles. Although these gems seem easy to use, if you want to reach the point of being able to control them freely, there is still a lot to go. Whether it is SHIELD, Loki, Malekith, or even Li Jing today, there will be no exception. The ring forged with the ether gem and the heart of the universe circulates around Li Jing's Dharma image, and is constantly nurtured and infiltrated by Li Jing's soul power. Although it is still too far away from complete control, it is finally making a little progress every moment. After the refining of the weapon, Li Jing's mind was also relaxed. In 3 days, the energy consumption was nothing, but the energy consumption was extremely considerable. Moreover, this time it was able to succeed directly, part of which was due to luck, but more of it was because the ether power was in a state of no one's control. Boss, you are finally done. The spaceship you asked me to pay attention to has indeed arrived on Earth now, and the other party's technological content is too high. I have only detected a few clues." "Oh, so fast?" Li Jing was a little surprised. He asked the Sky Eye to pay attention to the owner of the ether particles through the satellite the Dark Hells. Anyone who has watched Thor 2 would be wary of this race. Moreover, Li Jing is quite interested in the technology and spaceships they possess. "Where are they now, boss?" "The spaceship is still 10,000 meters in the sky and has no intention of landing on the ground. It seems that the elves are exploring the whereabouts of the ether particles, but we have a barrier to block it, not to mention that you have collected it now. If nothing unexpected happens, it is estimated that the elves will have to search for another day or two before landing." 1 or 2 days. "I'm afraid that by then it won't just be a problem with the ether gem." Li Jing smiled slightly, stood up and moved his arms. Chapter 206, Inexplicable Existence. "That's right, boss." New York City has now entered the final stage of the incident. The device made by the evil god Loki has also been transported to the Stark building. It may not take half a day for the time-space tunnel to be opened. Well, the speed is quite fast. It's time for the good show to start. Li Jing's mouth corners were hooked, and his figure disappeared without a trace and a breath. This secret room once again restored its former tranquility. In New York City, on the top floor of the Stark building, in less than a quarter of an hour, a plane landed here in the wind. The wind was whistling, and several men got off the plane. Eric Sevger, a famous physics expert, was also a researcher of the cosmic cube in SHIELD. But at this moment, he became a loyal assistant of Loki, a rebel who was completely unaware. Although the cosmic cube is the main force in building a time-space tunnel, the device used to make up for the user's own power is extremely cumbersome. This is why Li Jing chose to refine the device at this time. Although the Infinity Stones have a scattered will to resist, this is just a natural reaction to protect themselves. In essence, these stones are still ownerless, except for the 3 that have not yet appeared, and the legendary 7th stone. The 3 stones that have appeared now can be used by anyone. Ordinary people can either use Loki's scepter directly or use technology to make up for the control of the cosmic cube. And what Li Jing has to do is to take the ether particles that originally belonged to the Dark Elves from their hands and make it his own exclusive weapon. The breeze blew, and Li Jing appeared. This is the top floor of a building, not far from the Stark building. He was dressed in a black battle robe. Obviously, this time he came not just to watch the show. The powerful power of the cosmic cube is also very helpful to Li Jing, and he can also rely on the spatial power of the cosmic cube to better improve his own space-time-space. Not only that, there is another extremely important role, and that role is the most important existence for Li Jing. Time passed slowly, and the device on the top floor of Stark Tower was ready. Li Jing just kept watching and had no intention of snatching it, because in his perception, another group of people had also gathered here. The 5 people of Yisai were divided into 4 directions, forming a square several kilometers away, and surrounded the surrounding buildings including Stark Tower. "What is this?" Buzz, as Li Jing expected. A transparent and colorless barrier rose into the air, forming an invisible cubic space within a radius of several kilometers. Li Jing only frowned slightly when he saw this. Although both parties who cooperated with each other would not take this verbal agreement too seriously, just by looking at the actions of Yisai and others, he knew that they wanted to catch them all in one fell swoop. Humphrey, Li Jing's face turned cold. The function of this barrier was obvious at a glance. It was a mental barrier that allowed entry but not exit. People who entered would be eroded and harassed by this mental barrier at all times until they were completely controlled by the caster, including their thoughts and bodies. Whoosh! A sonic boom sounded suddenly, and in the blink of an eye, a red and gold humanoid armor landed on the roof of Stark Tower. Iron Man Tony. His appearance was enough to prove that S.H.I.E.L.D. was about to arrive. Li Jing's attention was once again on Stark Tower, and in his perception, the evil god Loki was also in this building. None of this was important, not important at all. Li Jing frowned slightly. He should have taken action long ago, but he was hesitating about something and had no intention of taking action at all. If he just wanted to get the cosmic cube, then Li Jing would not have to waste so much time. because the cosmic cube had already stayed in his hands. And even if he didn't want Loki's alien army to appear, it would not be a difficult thing to do, but these existences were trivial to Li Jing himself, insignificant trivialities. What he cared about was the real reason why this space-time was called the fifth-level space-time. Could it be that it was just because of the existence of those hidden forces, and the appearance of the Infinity Stones? Fuck. A sudden scolding suddenly interrupted Li Jing's own thoughts. What's going on? Something is wrong. Something is wrong at all. It has been wrong since the first time I came to this time and space. Otherwise, how could I become so indecisive? How could I become so fanciful? What went wrong? Li Jing's face became more and more ugly, and his eyes became more and more cold. In less than half a year, his psychology has changed drastically. Even if he has passed the so-called hard demon, he still pays attention to conspiracy theories when doing things. In other words, he has no intention of attacking. Chinese people pay attention to the doctrine of the mean, balancing movement, and take the emphasis in stillness. Do not refuse the two extremes, and the hook is just right. Do not die or be wanton. Do not be evil or righteous. The meaning of the center is steady, natural, and take the middle as harmony. Li Jing, who has been deeply educated in this way, naturally has this kind of character in his bones. But this kind of character also has a big disadvantage, that is, it is impartial and has no bright spots. After several battles in time and space, Li Jing thought he had gotten used to this kind of life and had changed his personality, but now it seems that for some reason, he has returned to his original essential character again. Is this the so-called "it's easy to change a country, but it's hard to change one's nature"? Li Jing suddenly looked up, and the madness in his eyes burst out. He didn't believe it, absolutely didn't believe it. Although the doctrine of the mean is good, it is definitely not suitable for survival in such a place. The ethereal gods have nothing to ask for, but that's not what they need. The demon god who kills the world is cruel and ruthless, and only such a goal can survive. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, Li Jing laughed out loud, without caring about whether he would be exposed. Come on, no matter what is weird about this time and space, no matter what existence makes me recover my essential hesitation, today I will let this city flow into a river of blood to wash away this inexplicable provocation to me. Li Jing stepped on the ground and ascended into the void, his eyes getting colder and colder. Sober. At this time he is more sober than ever, knowing that he knows what he is doing at this moment. Provocation. There is indeed an inexplicable existence in this space and time that is interfering with him, and it has also infiltrated his mind unconsciously, causing him to have a demon personality, and even wants to further change his personality and thoughts. The subtle change, the existence of Li Jing's force has only just discovered some signs. If he really cultivates in this space and time for a few years, it is not certain what he will become in the end. Chapter 207 New York Incident. Pa Li Jing put his hands together and stood upright in the void. Dark star, buzz. A black sphere like a black hole was gathered from between Li Jing's hands. As soon as this black sphere appeared, the clouds in the sky were all shaken and then dissipated for no reason. HMPH. If you want to change me, destroy me first. Li Jing had no expression on his face, and the strength in his hands was slightly loosened. Whoosh. The black sphere fell straight to the ground, and below was the most luxurious area in New York City, surrounded by some high-rise buildings, including the famous Stark Building. This incident was not unnoticed by anyone. Iron Man, the evil god Loki, physics Dr. Eric Seviger, Hawkeye, Natasha, and Captain America Stephen Rogers on a plane that just flew over. There were even ordinary pedestrians on the street. All of them stopped what they were doing, looked up at the sky, looked at the young man standing in the void, and looked at the black sphere that was getting closer and closer to the ground. Even the Yi-Sci-5 were no exception at this time. Buzz. Slight vibration, DA landing on the ground, a slight sound, returning to silence. At this time, everyone seemed to be inexplicably nervous and depressed. Although they didn't know why, they always stared at the place where the black sphere landed, and no one spoke. Dong. A sudden vibration, like a heartbeat. The people within a few kilometers all felt their heartbeats suddenly shaken, dizzy, Even the superhero Stephen Rogers on the plane couldn't escape. Stephen groaned and looked ugly, not to mention Natasha and Hawkeye, who were ordinary people. The two people who were flying the plane only felt their bodies softened and weak, and they could no longer control the driving of the plane. Dong, another sound. Everyone's heart moved with it, and ordinary people were paralyzed and fell to the ground. Even the well-trained Hawkeye and others were sweating. Dong, three sounds of the ghost gate opened, and the devil laughed. Before everyone felt anything after hearing this sound, a greater danger had already descended upon this beautiful city. This was an extremely huge black sphere, which was like a rapidly expanding hot air balloon. In just a short breath, it had grown to a diameter of 1 kilometer, bigger, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometer, until finally, the black sphere grew to a diameter of 3,000 meters, covering the surrounding high-rise buildings. The sky was dark, covering the sky and the sun. The ground was dark, and you couldn't see your hand in front of you. Pa Li Jing, who was in the sky, had a cold look on his face and suddenly clenched his fists. The black sphere below moved with its heart and shrank in an instant. In just one breath, it had become extremely small. Explode. Boom. The black extreme point, which was only the size of a grain of rice, suddenly exploded from the center, and an extremely huge light circle rose into the sky. Wherever it passed, all the high-rise buildings dissipated and disappeared like bin dregs. This whole set of attacks may seem complicated, but it was completed in just a few seconds. Downtown New York is now facing a catastrophe. Dark Star is a Yandun ninjutsu developed by Li Jing in his early years, but because it was incomplete at the time, it has never been used. But now, with Li Jing's own ability, the Dark Star technique has long been developed and completed, and new elements have been added to become a powerful composite ninjutsu. The 3 vibrations at the beginning of this composite ninjutsu are just a prelude to brewing, and the subsequent expansion and contraction are based on the principle of the shrinking ray gun. But this ninjutsu is only for attack, not for anything else. Theoretically, it can be endlessly contracted and expanded, and each time the energy is compressed to the extreme, the power of the Dark Star will increase geometrically. There is no upper limit to the power, as long as there is time, but just once is enough, because it is only the first expansion, and all objects within 3 kilometers have been destroyed, and they are essentially annihilated. In this regard, the Dark Star also has the same effect as the bloodline net of the Seeking Tao Jade. The breeze blew, and the light ring of the Dark Star had disappeared. In the center of New York, there was only a circular pit with nothing, several hundred meters deep and several kilometers across. This pit was formed by nature, as if it was eternal. Inside, there were no tall buildings, no humans, no flowers and plants. All objects and life were eliminated and annihilated here. Even the Stark building was now only left with a roof protected by the cosmic cube. The cosmic cube seemed to have no damage. The device had been completed, and it spontaneously formed an energy shield at this moment. Not only the roof of the Stark building, but even the physics doctor standing on it was protected. Li Jing landed softly and stood in the center of the pit. This attack had added tens of thousands of lives to his hands. Was it a massacre? It was not that simple. Li Jing would never do a simple act of killing, nor did he want to do it. This attack was what he needed to prove one thing. As for how much the consequences would cost, that was not within Li Jing's consideration at all. After the matter was over, the answer he got did not let Li Jing relax his vigilance. What he was testing was to see whether the inexplicable existence was a person or something else. If it was a person, this attack would be enough to test the other party's position. If it was something else, it could also test the other party's bottom line, or the way it existed, such as other infinite gems that existed like the cosmic cube in front of him. You must know that the infinite gems are very likely to have some kind of will, or they may be in the hands of someone. In Li Jing's calculations, it seems that no one else can pose such a threat to him now except the infinite gems, who can unconsciously change the character of others. Whoosh Bangkok. Li Jing stretched out his left hand and caught the punch of the sneak attack. With a little force, the steel in Li Jing's hand was already clenched and crackling. Iron Man, with his speed, he escaped the disaster. Not only that, Captain America and others were also saved by him. All of this did not escape Li Jing's perception. "Who are you?" Tony's voice was extremely cold, and it reached Li Jing's ears through the external speaker of the iron armor. Before asking questions, bang! Li Jing kicked out, and Tony's iron body rushed out 100 meters away. Boom! With a loud bang, the iron armor sank deep into the soil, forming a deep pit. "Also consider whether I will answer you first." Li Jing's voice was normal, and his tone was calm. He didn't care about Iron Man's sneak attack at all, because he had already found a more interesting existence. Chapter 208 Space Battleship. The Dark Elves' spaceship appeared above Li Jing's head. Although it was still invisible, Li Jing could not sense it at this distance. Did they discover the existence of ether particles, or were they attracted by the situation here? Li Jing smiled slightly. None of this mattered to him. The value of the Dark Elves was their long-standing technology and this spaceship. Bang bang bang! But before Li Jing could make the next move, several figures suddenly appeared and surrounded him in the center. Hawkeye, Natasha, Captain America Stephen, Thor, and Iron Man Tony Stark, who had just stood up. 5 people surrounded Li Jing in the center. Even the matter of the cosmic cube was temporarily abandoned by them, and they had no time to care about it. "Who are you?" It was the same question again, but this time it came from Stephen's mouth. There was no way. Li Jing's appearance was too sudden, and his force was obviously too strong. This was enough for them to ask again and again. Just look at the huge round pit that appeared in the center of New York City, not to mention the hundreds of high-rise buildings that disappeared under one blow, and tens of thousands of casualties. All of this was just the power of the blow from the person in front of him. "Who I am, you don't need to know. If you don't want to die, you'd better stay away from me." Li Jing looked cold, as if he ignored everyone. Stephen and the other 5 looked very ugly, too arrogant. Even the guy who called himself a god before didn't have such arrogance and arrogance. "Fuck you, Buzz." A light sound suddenly interrupted Tony's anger and confrontation with everyone. Stephen and the others turned their heads and looked. It was the cosmic cube. Stark Tower was destroyed, and the cosmic cube fell safely with its own energy field. The protected physicist Eric also landed safely at this time. Moreover, even without him, the activated cosmic cube would automatically open the time and space tunnel, and it was not up to others to decide. Boom! A thick blue energy column shot up into the sky, and it reached several thousand meters in the blink of an eye. Going up, the blue energy seemed to hit something real, and then slowly spread out, forming a circular channel. The space-time tunnel was officially opened. It was only a few thousand meters away from the ground, but inside the pitch-black space channel was another extremely distant galaxy. Whoosh whoosh! Alien objects invaded, and several single-soldier warships suddenly flashed out of the tunnel quickly. In just a blink of an eye, dozens of alien armies' warships had appeared. This kind of warship was like a large water motorcycle, with 2 alien creatures riding on it. They were very fast. It was only a few seconds after they appeared that they were close to the ground in New York City. "Guys, fight. Now is the time to work hard." Tony's voice came from the headset, and Stephen and the others nodded at the same time. Yes, it was time to fight hard. As for the guy in front of him, it would be better not to waste time on such a person. Several people looked at Li Jing deeply again, retreated together, and suddenly dispersed, rushing towards the increasing number of alien troops around. It is important for people to know themselves. At this time, if you limit your energy to people like Li Jing, it is equivalent to truly helping the alien army invade the Earth. Stephen and others left. Li Jing didn't care. His attention was still focused on the Dark Elves' warships, the II-5 from the Lonely Light universe, and the inexplicable existence that has not yet appeared. Li Jing stepped on his feet, and his figure soared into the air, straight into the sky. A series of sonic booms were heard in the places he passed by, relying on the pure physical strength of that kick. Boom boom boom! Several alien warships passed by, and before they got close to Li Jing himself, they were crushed by the air waves formed around him. As they ran all the way, the speed was too fast. Moya only felt a flash in front of his eyes, and the figure in the distance had disappeared. "Captain, this Kigaku seems to have hidden a lot of combat power, otherwise he wouldn't have such speed and physique. From this point of view, He is somewhat similar to your ability. Yeah. I looked serious and nodded slightly. Although he did not underestimate the opponent's combat power, it seems that he still underestimated the opponent. For example, the previous Black Sphere attack. Under that kind of attack, except for himself, it is estimated that none of the 4 Moyas can withstand it and survive. Remember, the 4 of you can only besiege and defend together. Don't expose yourself to the opponent's attack alone. Otherwise, be prepared to be collected. Yes, Captain. Several people responded in unison, and they were also very clear about the seriousness of the matter. Just the attack just now, not only did it break the spiritual illusion that the 4 people jointly arranged, but it also caused the 4 people to suffer some backlash and hidden injuries. This is to break through the spiritual skills with physical energy. Although it is not clear what special nature the opponent's moves have, it does not prevent Moya and the other 4 from evaluating Li Jing's combat power and raising it to a higher level again. Captain, aren't we going to take action yet? Don't worry, it's not the right time yet. Let's wait for these people to fight for a while and then talk about the number of heads. Yi Sai looked normal, but the smile on the corner of his mouth seemed a little cold and cruel. The cosmic cube, Yi Sai and others only detected its infinite energy, but they didn't expect it to have the function of opening the space-time tunnel. But this was also an unexpected surprise. This thing, the scepter in the hands of another person, and the advanced system controlled by outsiders, none of these can be let go. Yi Sai and others were still watching the battle, but most of their attention was still on Li Jing in the sky, and at this time, Li Jing, he was standing in the void, facing the space battleship carried by the Dark Elves. Not showing up yet? Li Jing smiled slightly, and a little green light appeared on his fingers. The elf leader Malekith, who was in the space battleship, felt that the human outside the battleship had penetrated the cover of the battleship and discovered his existence. Moreover, at such a close distance, Malekith also noticed something very familiar on the other party. It was the ether particles. There was no doubt about it. Although the unique breath was sometimes there, it was definitely it. Chapter 209 Dark Elves. Buzz. A green light burst out from Li Jing's finger and went straight to the invisible elf warship in the void. The shrinking ray that had not been used for a long time appeared again at this moment. In a certain sense, this shrinking ray is indeed invincible. At least, the Dark Elves have no ability to defend against this strange attack. In just a few seconds, the spaceship that was several thousand meters high shrunk to the size of a palm and appeared. Bang bang bang, there was a sound, and hundreds of Dark Elves, along with their leader Malekith, were ejected from the body by the shrunken spaceship. The shrinking ray is out of control. It works every time it is tested on an individual, but it works sometimes and sometimes not on the individuals outside the individual. But it doesn't matter. Li Jing's goal is to obtain an intact spaceship. As for the Dark Elves, they just need to grab a few more characters to search their memories. Li Jing put away the palm-sized spaceship here, and the hundreds of Dark Elves who were free-falling in the sky were a little dumbfounded. What the hell is going on? Malekith, the extremely cold-blooded leader of the elves, was so serious that he couldn't help but feel the urge to curse. Whoosh, the strong wind blew, and Malekith and others were still in free fall. He looked coldly at Li Jing, who was getting farther and farther away. The ether particles were taken away, and now even the space battleship was inexplicably taken away. What kind of monster is this? Is it a grudge against the Dark Elves? They came to the Earth from billions of miles away. No matter how you look at it, it seems that they are here to deliver things, and they beat people after delivering them. It's so unpleasant. No matter what these Dark Elves think, Li Jing feels very good at this time. It is necessary to put away the space battleship first, so as not to fight later and be damaged by some blind guy. That would be a bit of a loss. With a slight smile, Li Jing's figure suddenly dropped. In just a few breaths, he had caught up with the Dark Elves who landed in advance. Papa with his left hand and right hand, Li Jing grabbed 2 Dark Elves and transferred them to his own space-time in an instant. Although the environment of Li Jing's current space-time is not very good, it is just like the space-time of Akaya Bito or the space created by Kaguya Hime, so it is not a problem for people to survive in it. Papa 2 more. Li Jing sealed them so that they could not move, and then transferred them to the space-time at an incredibly fast speed. When approaching the ground, in this short period of time, Li Jing had already harvested hundreds of dark elves. Boom boom boom. Originally, all the dark elves could be subdued at once and collected in the space-time, but Li Jing still watched hundreds of dark elves fall to the ground fiercely, including the elf leader Malekith, who had not moved. Dark elves can't fly, nor can they die. They fell to the ground from a height of several thousand meters, and more than half of them died immediately. Even Malekith was vomiting blood at this time and was seriously injured. However, there was an elf with the very burly figure beside him. Even in this state of falling from a high altitude, he just shook his head while lying in the pit, and then stood up as if he had not suffered any damage. Li Jing had also seen this powerful dark elf in the movie. It was a cursed dark elf. It was the most powerful warrior in the clan. Its combat power was enough to crush Thor, but because of the decline of the dark elf clan, it should be the last one. The cursed elf was more than 2 meters tall. There were sharp bone spurs on its armor, even on its head. Not only was its appearance extremely ugly, but there were also 2 bone spurs on its face that looked like ivory. With the help of the cursed elf, Malekith stood up shakily. He reached out to wipe the blood from his mouth, and his eyes staring at Li Jing became colder and colder. "I'll kill him." The cursed elf nodded, let go of Malekith, and walked straight towards Li Jing's direction. Roar tilde roar, like a beast. It's not that the cursed elf can't speak, but only roaring can slightly vent the anger that has long been overflowing in his heart. Bang! With force on his feet, the cursed elf suddenly accelerated, and his body was like a rhino beast, directly crashing into Li Jing. Li Jing saw all this, but he was not moved at all. Even if it was a brute force competition, his current physique was completely better than the existence of the cursed elf, not to mention the others. The gap was too big. Boom! With a loud bang, the cursed elf directly hit the palm that Li Jing stretched out. In addition to shaking the ground and cracking a few cracks, the others didn't even force Li Jing to retreat even a small step. It's not that the cursed elf is not strong enough, but Li Jing is no longer human. The gap between the two is like a lion and a rabbit, and the rabbit is the kind that has just been born. If Li Jing uses all his strength, it will be enough to destroy this level of power more than 100 times in an instant. Too weak. Li Jing shook his head slightly. He understood that the reason why this space-time was divided into 5 levels was probably because of the top few combat powers, or because of the existence of the Infinity Stones. Compared with the world of Naruto, the difference is probably that one has already rushed out of the planet, while the other is still on the same planet. Of course, this is only one aspect. The combat power between the 2 time spaces cannot be compared at all, because this is somewhat like Guangong fighting Qinkai. If you don't put them together, you will never know the result. Roar roar interrupted Li Jing's thoughts. The cursed elf took a step back, raised his hands and merged, and suddenly smashed towards Li Jing's head. Too slow. Boom! There was a loud noise, but Li Jing was the first to arrive. He kicked the cursed elf 100 meters away. The cursed elf rolled all the way and disappeared directly into the soil. Malekith's face became even uglier. The unknown enemy in front of him was unexpectedly powerful. The cursed elf, as the most powerful warrior in the tribe, didn't even have the ability to fight back at this moment. This kind of thing. Roar tilde another roar. The cursed elf drilled out of the mud, and while moving, it rushed towards Li Jing again. However, this was completely useless. One punch, just one punch, the cursed elf was hit hard and returned to the ground at a faster speed than when it went. Da Li Jing took a step and slowly walked towards Malekith. Everything here was very quiet. Compared with the chaotic battle around, it seemed so out of place, because all the alien warships that approached this place were shot down and crashed by invisible unknown attacks before they entered the attack range. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 210 Unfair Game. Who are you? Do you have any grudges against me, my dark elves? Malekith said, blood spilling from his mouth again. His martial arts skills were not very high, at least not as high as Thor's. Falling from a height of several thousand meters was enough to cause serious damage to his internal organs. Will the Dark Elves who want to rule the universe also beg for mercy in a low voice? Ha! This is a little different from what I imagined. Li Jing shook his head and smiled slightly. There are too many loopholes in Marvel movies, and they can't stand any scrutiny at all. How distant and dazzling would the races born before the universe be, inherited to Malekith's generation, let alone how many generations? At least their current abilities are not enough to dominate the universe. This has nothing to do with the rupture of inheritance or the thinness of blood. Since they have already declined so much, how could they still want to rely on this remaining power to be the enemy of the entire universe? And not only that, thousands of years ago, Malekith had a large number of elves. At that time, he failed in the battle with the Ezra realm, let alone now. If a race does not hide its strength and secretly accumulate strength, what can it do even if it has a glorious history? Arrogant. No one can make the Dark Elves beg for mercy. No one. The Dark Elves will never surrender to any existence. Malekith's face was ferocious, and he roared loudly regardless of his own injuries. Really? Your courage is commendable, but unfortunately, I don't need your surrender. Li Jing moved his feet, and his figure disappeared, and Malekith only felt the wind behind his head, and hurriedly lowered his head and rushed forward. Bang! With a crisp sound. Malekith's reaction was still too slow for Li Jing. A side kick hit the back of his heart, and Malekith rolled dozens of meters away and fell to the ground. Li Jing landed softly and shook his head again. He didn't want to waste time with such a person anymore, although he didn't know how the Dark Elves inherited their bloodline, or whether it was really broken. It didn't matter if the loss was a little bit less. Being able to sleep for thousands of years without making progress and waiting for the opportunity was really fascinating, because the same thing had been heard too much, and everyone liked to sleep for a long time. Time is changing, the world is flowing, reincarnation is continuing, and the future is always ahead. Movement will never stay in place and wait because of a person's rest. Dark Elves, your value is really not in line with such a long-standing inheritance. It's too cheap. Isn't it a bit bad to comment on other people's history without experiencing it? With the sudden interruption, Li Jing slowly turned around, and the evil god Loki who had been sensed appeared in front of him. Loki was wearing bright golden armor, holding a scepter of mind, and his face was still carrying an unchanging smile. Loki, you don't want to be the king anymore, but you have time to take care of my problems. I wonder if the SHIELD team is too useless, or is it because you want to die too much? Li Jing's tone was cold, and he could guess the purpose of Loki's appearance at this time. Seeking death? No, no. Loki shook his head and smiled. I am not interested in participating in the problems of the Dark Elves, or your problems. I came here just to invite you to participate in the rule of this world. I just don't know if you are interested. As expected, Li Jing nodded slightly. It is better to be a helper than an enemy. Drawing a big pike can add more help. If Loki is not a fool, he will naturally take action after seeing the attack power of the Dark Star. This action has nothing to do with how fierce the attack of the Avengers team is, nor how urgent the battle situation is at this time, because as long as one step late, it is possible that good things will turn into bad things, and then there will naturally be more resistance. And choosing to negotiate at this time, the timing is just right. Loki, I don't think highly of your plan, but I'm a little surprised by your ability to think. How about this? Let's try a different way of playing. A different way of playing? Loki's smile disappeared, and his brows furrowed slightly, because he found that the heart of the person in front of him was much, much bigger than he had imagined, which was not a good thing. Yes, let's play a game between you and me. As for the rules, I'll make them. Li Jing knocked the cursed elf who rushed over again to the ground, his face unchanged. What game? What do I need to pay? What can I get? Loki's smile was gone, but he didn't refuse. It's very simple. Li Jing smiled slightly. I will give you an army. You can use this power to do anything, including participating in the current battle. If you win, you will get my support. You can be your king. You can lead your people into the Ezra domain, and take back what belongs to you. After a slight pause, Li Jing's eyes turned cold, and he looked directly into Loki's eyes and spoke again. If you lose, you will lose everything, including your pitiful life that calls itself God. Loki's expression remained unchanged, and he did not dodge Li Jing's cold gaze. If someone dared to speak to him like this in other periods, Loki would definitely let the other person know what the majesty and punishment from God is. But not this time, even though Loki, whose pride had already penetrated into his bones, did not get angry this time. It's not that he didn't want to, but that he couldn't, because Loki had already realized that if the existence in front of him wanted to take his life, such a simple thing might only require moving a finger to do it. This feeling, never before, never felt that his life was so fragile, it was simply vulnerable. Taking a slight breath, Loki calmed down. What about you? What do you want to get in this game? Me? Li Jing smiled again. Think about your own problems first, Loki. This game, but it concerns everything about you. Silence. Loki was silent, but it only lasted for less than a few seconds, and he once again raised his head and looked at Li Jing, and this time, the light in his eyes was more determined. Okay, I agree to play a game with you that determines your fate. As if he had figured something out in a short time, Loki's mouth regained its usual smile. This game is extremely unfair. Loki paid with his life, while Li Jing paid with his strength. However, this kind of strength is also what Loki desperately wants. As for whether it is fair or not, when Loki was exiled in the Asgard, he had already understood the truth about fairness. I recommend a book from a friend, The Counterattack of Infinite Supporting Characters. The great supporting character Savior Su Yi, he inherited the fine tradition of the time traveler. Mirong Fu and Yang Kang were possessed by glory at this moment. If you like it, you may wish to read it. Please support us. Thank you. Chapter 211, The Sorrow of Decline. If you win, I will fulfill my promise, and you will find that what you get is more than you thought. Don't talk as if you know me well. You know what I want. Loki's face changed slightly. He could compromise on other things, but not on this one. You and I have different goals. Let's prove it all with the final result. Li Jing shook his head slightly and did not answer Loki's question directly. As for what Loki wants, it can be summarized in a few modern words: sense of existence. This sense of existence will be reflected in all emotional problems. Family, friendship, love, being ignored, abandoned, betrayed, are all because of the self-esteem built on the sense of existence. Especially for a proud existence like Loki, it is even more impossible to let go of the only pure land in his heart that cannot be given up, because it is a forbidden land that belongs to him alone. Whoever touches it will be his enemy. Because of this, if Loki really can't let it go, then at the end of this game, he will lose more than he gains. Li Jing dare not say that he can completely understand a person, but the more time and space he has experienced, the more people he has come into contact with, plus the ability of all things that can help him study other people's memories and personalities. These helps are concentrated together, which is enough to help him take a big step in the field of psychology that ordinary people can hardly imagine. This is also the most fundamental reason why Li Jing himself has often changed his mentality recently, and why he found that there is an inexplicable existence that wants to change him. Where is your army? It hasn't appeared yet. Is it hidden underground by you? Obviously, the previous topic was not satisfactory to Loki. He smiled very elegantly and waved the scepter in his hand, but a trace of sarcasm was unconsciously revealed. You guessed this point very well. Li Jing smiled slightly and put his hands together. Immortal law, reincarnation, a series of noises continued to be heard, and under the trembling of the earth, hundreds of coffins broke through the ground and rose up. Bang 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 bang, all the coffins opened and fell to the ground. Hundreds of soldiers wearing the same black equipment took a step forward at the same time. Boom, the sound vibrated. The combination was consistent, and it went straight to people's hearts. What is this? Loki opened his eyes wide, obviously extremely shocked. The aura exuded by each of the hundreds of people was extremely powerful. When everyone was combined, the momentum was even more soaring. The reason why this secret technique was called the immortal technique was that after being improved by Li Jing, It had become his unique technique to summon troops. These troops were all created by the latest developed third-generation legion of the 8 divisions. Their combat power was powerful and invincible. Each of them carried at least the chakra energy above the cage level, and each of them carried at least 1 blood limit. What's more, the captain-level figures of the 8 divisions were all owners of blood elimination. It's just an advance force, not worth making a fuss about. The troops are in your hands. You will find that they are far more powerful than you imagined. As for what to do, I don't think I need to say anything more. Of course, Loki came back to his senses, and a smile appeared on his lips again, but this time, there was obviously some cruelty and coldness hidden in the smile. Turning around, Loki looked around. At this time, the battle around him had become more intense. After joining the fighting force of the Hulk, the Avengers team maintained a certain balance in the battle. Moreover, with the increasingly courageous Iron Man, Thor and others, even though the alien army in the time and space tunnel continued to appear, the surrounding battle situation did not have a one-sided suppression situation. Guys, it's our turn to perform on stage. Let me see how powerful you are. Loki smiled slightly, raised the scepter in his hand high, and waved it. Go. Roar, roar, roar. Hundreds of reincarnated troops roared together. In just a breath, the figures of the troops disappeared from behind Loki. The speed was too fast. When they appeared again, they were already standing beside the opponents they found. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, explosions were heard everywhere. The Avengers team suffered heavy blows one after another. Iron Man, the Road Giant, Thor, and even many alien teams were no exception. Loki's eyes changed and he turned around to look at Jing. Cooperate with me, and the Joker and others will no longer be necessary. However, if you want to keep them, you can do it according to your own wishes. No need. Loki waved his hand, turned around and walked away, but his last words were heard by Jing again. The game starts. I will follow the rules. I hope cooperating with you will be the right choice. Loki walked away, and Jing stood there and sneered slightly. It has come to this point. What's the point of playing such a trick? In the last sentence, Loki seemed to have let go of everything and chose to cooperate sincerely, but this was just a small conspiracy with hidden intentions. In fact, he wanted Jing to relax his vigilance and give tolerance and open-mindedness, so that Loki could fully control the army's strength. Moreover, if Jing really chose to believe Loki, then when distributing the results of the war in the future, Loki would also take a lot of initiative. Humphrey, you want to change anything with just one sentence. Too naive. Loki. Bang. Jing stepped on the ground, and the cursed elves who had been knocked down several times before, as well as Malekith, were shaken off the ground. At this time, both of them were seriously injured. Not to mention resistance. Even the strength to escape no longer existed. After dealing with trivial matters, it's time to end your suffering, Malekith. Jing glanced at the corner of his mouth slightly. After the name was translated into Chinese, it was really not very nice. Puff. Malekith spit out blood again. Haha. It's easy to kill me, but it's wishful thinking to want me to submit to you. No, don't get me wrong. Jing shook his finger. I don't need your submission. Your value will soon be used up. When the time comes, I will give you a quick death. Really? Then thank you very much. Malekith used up his last bit of strength and stood up shakily. It was over. Everything was over. The ether particles could not be recovered, and the warships were also seized. What's more, the last strength of the Dark Elves had been killed or injured. Everything didn't matter anymore. Is the great race inherited from before the universe going to be destroyed today? Father, you have been wise and brave all your life. It seems that the only stain is that you have killed your race in my hands. Chapter 212. The battle is fierce. Malekith, his figure swayed and half knelt on the ground, and the black crystal metal he held tightly in his hand, but because of too much force, his palm was cut and bleeding. Jing stepped on the ground and walked to Malekith. For a dying person, Jing didn't want to waste too much words. Jing raised his palm lightly and pressed it on the top of Malekith's head, and the memory search technique was activated immediately. Roar. A heart-wrenching roar, but it was the cursed elf who was already seriously injured. He stood up again and rushed towards Jing with his last strength. Boom 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 with every step. The earth was shaken by the powerful force it gathered. Li Jing looked at the cursed elf with a little surprise. He did it himself, and he knew that with every attack before, Li Jing's energy would penetrate into the body of the cursed elf and destroy it. After so many attacks, the body of the cursed elf should have become a pool of mud, but now he can still stand up and use more powerful power. This cursed elf has some merits. Roar tilde. The cursed elf clenched his fists and blasted at Li Jing. All the power in his 2-meter-tall body was concentrated on his arms and burst out at one point. Boom tilde. The ground cracked and the soil splashed, with Li Jing and the other two as the center. A strong wind and sand suddenly pushed to the surrounding area. As for the land under the feet of several people, it was several meters deep, forming a prototype pit. However, such a powerful punch was still blocked by Li Jing with one hand, and he was unharmed. Moreover, his other hand did not even leave Malekith's head from beginning to end. Malekith, his eyes turned white when his memory was searched, but a strange smile suddenly appeared at the corner of his mouth. The red light flashed. It was something from Malekith's waist. Li Jing's expression changed. He recognized this thing. Boom! The annihilation bomb exploded. The range it affected was not wide, only 3 or 4 meters in diameter, but the power it possessed was enough to absorb and compress all the existences in this range until they were annihilated to the extreme. In the death zone, no existence could survive. Malekith, Li Jing, and the cursed elves who had died after attacking the last force. The annihilation bomb had already wrapped them all. The blood-red light showed the deadly danger at the moment. Absorb, compress, and gather to the extreme. It was completed in just a moment, and when I looked again, the pit that was attacked by the cursed elves before it was now empty. Nothing was left. A breeze blew by, except for the constant fighting in other places. This place seemed strangely calm. It disappeared. Everything disappeared. Even Li Jing was no exception. Ahem! With a light cough, a figure appeared from space not far from the place where the attack occurred. It was undoubtedly Li Jing, but his chest was pierced by a sharp blade, forming a 2-phase penetrating wound. Careless, really careless. The annihilation bomb. This kind of thing is nothing to Li Jing, whether it is time-space ninjutsu or hard resistance. This kind of attack strength is not enough to cause much threat and damage to him. However, at the moment when Li Jing activated the time-space ninjutsu to dodge, a sudden light had already penetrated his chest, and it broke through the defense instantly. Li Jing, who was so fast, had no time to make any defense. But fortunately, the thing dissipated by itself after the attack. Although the time was short, Li Jing also saw clearly what it was. Crystal. A black crystal-like metal, but it dissipated too quickly. And this kind of thing did not appear in the original movie. While recovering from his injuries, Li Jing sorted out some of Malekith's memories. Only then did he know the origin of the black crystal from the little information. The dark crystal seal is a unique token of the leader of the Dark Elves. Li Jing doesn't know much about its specific function because the previous events were a bit sudden and Malekith's memories were not fully retrieved. He was careless, or because of his mentality. If he wanted to transition from an ordinary young man to a truly powerful man who could strategize, the time he spent, the process and transformation he had to go through, no matter which one, was not something that could be easily accomplished. People are lazy. If you go against the current, you will easily become lazy and retreat if you don't pay attention. Li Jing is no exception. He found that as long as he grasped the overall situation, he would slowly relax without realizing it. This has nothing to do with other aspects, or the mentality is not well honed. This is also the biggest difference between ordinary people and truly powerful people. Ordinary people will choose to do things with their heart, while the strong will do things with their heart. One is intermittent, the other is regular. One is careful only when it is necessary, while the other has already integrated the carefulness into every moment of daily life. This is the mentality. The look in Li Jing's eyes became more determined. The injury was not important at all. Only by thinking through these problems can we go further. Otherwise, this time he was only injured. But what about the next time? I am afraid he will lose his life directly. The battle situation around has intensified. After the addition of hundreds of shadow-level combat forces, the Avengers team was suppressed and retreated step by step. Even the alien army that appeared in the time and space tunnel was severely damaged for a while. This is also because of the pressure shared by the alien army. Otherwise, except for the Hulk and Thor, the other members of the Avengers team would not be able to support it safely until now. After all, the gap is too big. Even Iron Man Tony's armor can hardly defend against the repeated attacks of the Reincarnation Army. Wood escape, steel shield, swift escape, storm escape, burning escape. The weirdness of ninjutsu and bloodline limit are simply not something that these guys who are only slightly stronger than ordinary people can resist and defend. In a short period of time, most of the surrounding alien legions have been slaughtered by the Reincarnation troops. In the most prosperous area of New York City, a circular pit with a diameter of several kilometers is located here. Fights, explosions, gunpowder, fire, roars, fighting, screams. These existences, starting from the circular pit, directly radiate outwards to an area of dozens of kilometers, and there is a trend of getting bigger and bigger, affecting a wider area. If there is no turnaround, then tomorrow's newspaper headlines, TV news, and network communications can only record the day of New York City's demise. Moreover, the New York incident can only be a beginning and a starting point for the final event. Chapter 213, 9 Nuclear Explosions. Ding boss. Emergency. The highest instruction from the World Union Conference is to launch a nuclear strike here. Oh, Li Jing paused slightly. The appearance of nuclear weapons was within his expectations. It was not too early than expected, but later than expected. Control their operating system, nuclear bombs, since they like it, then detonate one in their own home. Yes, boss. Danyan responded to the operation. Nuclear bomb weapons are the iconic weapons of every powerful country. They are the right to speak, defense, and power. This weapon is used as a trump card. The operating system it carries is for internal use and not for external use. This system, even if you find the world's top hackers, there is no way to conquer it, because there is no channel to connect to the outside world. But these problems are nothing in the hands of the S-level Danyan intelligence system. The signal transmission means and network connection technology it has do not need the backward things such as the signal towers set up on the Earth. Shield, space carrier. After the post-war adjustment of Hawkeye's sneak attack, the carrier has initially restored its navigation and communication capabilities, but because of the huge losses before, if it wants to have attack and defense capabilities, it must undergo a comprehensive overall repair. In a conference room, the one-eyed director Nick Fury's face was grim at this time, and directly opposite him, there were several three-dimensional screens playing images, and the images were exactly the real situation in New York taken by satellite. A huge pit with a diameter of several kilometers, unknown figures with extremely powerful military forces, and more alien troops, as well as hundreds of powerful troops who just appeared. Although the two sides can be recognized at a glance that they are not in an alliance relationship, and can even be said to be fighting each other, but in such a short period of time, two powerful legions of unknown origin appeared at the same time. For the Earth, whose defense is not strong, it can be called a catastrophic disaster. Ding, the picture ends, and it is replaced by the figures of several government officials. You've seen it. Do you still want to stop it? One of the unstable team you formed has died now. Do you still want to wait until they all die one by one? New York has fallen. There is no need to explain anything. As the director of SHIELD, Nick Fury, where is your overall view? The Federation has agreed to use nuclear weapons. Nick Fury, you are now the closest to the incident in New York. We need your final answer. Enough. Although Nick Fury's face was dark, it was enough to let people see his anger at the moment. Stop? Of course I will stop it. Even if the Avengers team has to die, they must die worthily. I will not agree to release nuclear weapons. Nick Fury saw it very clearly. Although he was the director who controlled the behemoth SHIELD, he was essentially just an executor. As for the decision-makers, they belonged to a group of people above. New York was nothing to this group of people. Stable rule was the result they most wanted to see. As for the Avengers team, it was an unnecessary unstable factor. If they could disappear with the enemies in New York, that would be the best thing. Fury, you've been dismissed. I will Whatever. Nick Fury responded indifferently and stretched out his hand to turn off the communication. Buzz tilde chi chi tilde Suddenly, Fury's hand had just been raised and had not yet fallen, and the picture in front of him seemed to be disturbed, flashing distorted scenes and harsh sounds. What's going on? The communication still did not recover, but was further cut off, and it was cut off from all places at the same time. Sir, emergency, huh? Fury was slightly stunned. The voice coming from the headset was Adjutant Hill. What's the matter? Sir, you'd better come and take a look. Many areas around the world have suffered nuclear bomb explosions. What? Nick Fury was shocked and even thought he had heard it wrong. Nuclear bombs, and many places. Could it be that the communication interruption just now was how many places in total? Which areas are they? Nick Fury asked anxiously while rushing out of the meeting room quickly. They are all countries with nuclear weapons. There are 9 regions in the world. Each explosion site is a relatively remote place, and the local population is not dense. 9 places? Haven't you detected missile launches before? No, Hill answered very straightforwardly, but Nick Fury's brows were even more furrowed. How could such a large-scale event be so sudden that the major powers could not react in time? Unless, there is only one possibility, that is, the nuclear bombs belonging to each country suddenly exploded by themselves, so there was no launch and no time to react. But such a situation happened in 9 countries at the same time. How could it be possible to say that there was no human presence? What kind of existence would it be to have such an ability to control the nuclear weapons launch pads of 9 countries at the same time? Thinking repeatedly in his mind, Fury, who kept walking, had already turned around the corridor and came to the battleship command center. The personnel here were already busy. The screens showed the live images of the nuclear explosion transmitted by satellites. The mushroom cloud was clearly visible. A total of 9. The United States, Britain, France. 9 countries, including Japan and the island nation that has never claimed to have nuclear weapons. The scene was so huge that even satellites could not take full pictures. The dust was violent and the earthquake was roaring. The ground in the scene had already changed beyond recognition and was no longer the same as before. The personnel in the command center were all busy, operating, communicating, and connecting. This incident was no longer an internal problem of a certain country, but an incident that the whole world was worried about. This time there were 9 missiles, so would there be a next time? If there was, how many times could the Earth withstand? If that moment really came, then nuclear winter and nuclear doomsday would no longer be fantasy products that belonged exclusively to novels. Everyone was busy, but Nick Fury was thinking about more at the moment. The New York incident had not been resolved yet, and now there was such a big nuclear incident, and it happened in such a coincidental time period. If there was no connection between them, he would never believe it. Was it the work of the forces in the time-space tunnel, or was it the work of that mysterious person? Adjutant, connect to the satellite image over New York. Yes, sir. The information was transmitted, and the screen showed that Nick Fury was staring at the situation on the screen. The Avengers team had lost Hawkeye before, and the current Captain Stephen and Natasha were also captured by the enemy. The only ones left are Thor, the Hulk, and Iron Man Tony, who are still fighting hard. Chapter 214 Pink Star Attack. In New York City, Jing raised his hand to take the Hulk's punch. Because of the continuous battles and anger, the Hulk had expanded to a behemoth of more than 4 meters in height. Boom! With a loud bang, the ground under Jing's feet turned into dust, splashing into the air to cover. Roar! Roaring to the sky, the Hulk banner raised his fists above his head and used all his strength to smash Jing's position. Boom! The ground sank deeply, and the cracks were as long as dozens of meters away. Boom! Another heavy blow, one after another. Boom! 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 Banner seemed crazy, and didn't care whether he attacked the enemy or not. He just wanted to end this battle in the shortest time. The Hulk himself was called another existence by Banner Hulk, although theoretically, the more anger there is, the more power Hulk has. However, it will be more difficult to control this power with Banner's own will. If we can't get rid of the person in front of us while we are sober now, then when the Hulk really appears, it will become another huge disaster without distinguishing between friend and foe. Big guy, What are you doing? A sudden voice came from behind. Banner's body suddenly paused, and he turned around and swung his hand to hit behind him. Whoosh snap. Banner's palm at this time is more than one person tall, but it is still completely blocked by Li Jing's raised palm. Motionless. Cells are upgraded and replaced, and the 4th level superpower is added. Li Jing's strength at this time cannot be calculated at a normal level. One big and one small, extremely uncoordinated. Banner roared, and under the bulging veins, another huge palm also slammed down. Snap. Caught a crisp sound, followed by the sound of the ground tearing. The physical strength of the Hulk is indeed strong. Even Li Jing, under the hard connection, had to transfer part of his strength to the ground. You hit me so many times, you should take my punch. Li Jing sneered slightly, exerted force with both hands, and flicked the Hulk's arms with 2 snaps. Ha! Li Jing made a fist with one hand and punched out with all his strength. His target was the body of the Hulk, who was leaning back. Pink star. Boom! With a loud bang, Li Jing's fist hit the air. On the surface, almost nothing could be seen from this punch, but suddenly, the Hulk screamed, his body cracked, and blood splashed. Boom! The Hulk, who was more than 4 meters tall, fell on his back. His body was covered with dense small cracks. The distance between each crack was less than a millimeter. The dense cracks were like a fine net, which made people feel numb and like needles piercing their backs. Pink Star is one of the 3 boxing techniques developed by Li Jing, and it belongs to the 2nd style. The first boxing technique is the shock kill used in the Naruto world. Shock kill is a close-range physical attack, which is a frequency vibration method. It must be in contact with the enemy to be implemented, while Pink Star is a sure kill method that is transmitted through space from a long distance. It is space, not air. This is a method that is fundamentally different. The method of Powder Star is enough to attack in a vacuum state without any restrictions due to lack of air. Banner lay on the ground for only a few seconds, and the ground where he was occupied by the blood flowing out. He now only felt severe pain and weakness all over his body, and his brain hurt. Even if he wanted to stand up again, it was simply impossible. Pink Star, through space transmission, has a certain spatial movement function. It will directly explode inside the enemy's body, and carry out essential destruction from the inside out, and even the brain and other vital places will not be spared. Theoretically, if the Powder Star is practiced to the highest level, it can be enough to carry out molecular-level destruction inside a person's body. At that time, let alone injury, not even a cell will survive. At this moment, Banner can remain intact. One is that his body cells do contain huge power, and the other is that Li Jing's attack was reserved. This is a good test product. Li Jing does not want to have a moment of pleasure and blast him into slag. Boom! Li Jing took out a large container-style device from the tattoo space. The device fell to the ground, splashing a lot of smoke and dust. Click. Under the control of the Sky Eye, a mechanical arm stretched out from the large device. The mechanical arm stretched out, grabbed the Hulk on the ground, and then retracted and closed. Click. The Hulk was put into a metal box, and the door was closed. The system in it would automatically paralyze, sustain life, and refrigerate him. Even if the Hulk was strong, he could not escape the attack and control at the nano level. Boss, it's done. Yeah. Li Jing nodded slightly and recovered the device. Hawkeye died, Banner and the other 2 were captured, and the Avengers were now left with only Iron Man, Tony and Thor. Buzz! There was a sudden sound, and Li Jing turned his head to see that the space tunnel formed by the cosmic cube was being closed, and the person who closed it was the evil god Loki holding the Mind Scepter. Li Jing smiled slightly. It seemed that Loki had been beaten up by the Hulk before, and now he had figured out a lot of things. Otherwise, he would not want to express his position at this time. Ding boss, a plane carrying a nuclear warhead is coming. It's 10 minutes away from the launch site. Oh, their country has been attacked by nuclear bombs, and these people are still determined to destroy New York? Li Jing sneered. The problem of nuclear bombs is nothing. Ordinary people, no matter how powerful they are still ordinary people. Boss, remotely control the plane, return to the original route, and go back to where you came from. Also, connect to the network around the world. I want Loki to be worthy of the title of king, and it's time for him to show his face. "Okay, boss." In the Atlantic Ocean, there is still some distance from the coastline. At an altitude of several thousand meters, a new F-Series Raptor fighter jet quickly passed by. This type of aircraft can reach a maximum speed of more than Mach 5. It carries the most advanced weapons, operation and navigation systems. It is a type of fighter with excellent combat capabilities. 5 minutes to launch. 5 minutes to launch. The fighter jet drove rapidly, and the altitude dropped again, reaching a height of 100 meters above the sea surface, reporting data to the headquarters again. The driver Ham made all preparations in an orderly manner. Although the launch of a nuclear bomb is simple, it cannot afford any mistakes, otherwise, it will not be the end of the plane being destroyed and people being killed. It will be, suddenly, the operating system in the cockpit of the fighter jet flickered repeatedly, but before Ham could do anything, the disturbed system returned to normal again. Raptor 1, Raptor 1, this is the command center. There is an abnormal signal at your location. Please check for interference and report the situation again. Command center, everything is normal, everything is normal. Ham was a little stunned to listen to the system's automatic report, and the voice used was still his voice. What was going on? Chapter 215 Reincarnation Legion. Command center, command center. Previous report. It's useless, your command center can't hear it. The voice from the headset interrupted Ham. Ham opened his mouth and cold sweat dripped from his forehead. "Who the hell are you?" "Hey, I've been with the boss for a long time, and I don't have the habits of talking to the dead. You'd better sit down and enjoy this last bit of time." "What do you mean? What the hell are you? Answer me." Ham was sweating profusely. The scene in front of him was too weird. Because of fear, his voice was raised again and again, but no matter how much Ham roared, Danyan did not give any response. It reset the course, the fighter took off, turned half a circle, and returned to the original route according to Li Jing's instructions. "Shit." Command center, command center. Ham called and operated manually, trying to turn the plane that changed the course back again, but the plane's operating system had been remotely controlled by Danyan. No matter what Ham did, it was just useless work without any effect. The S-Class electronic system Sky, its greatest ability is that it will learn and improve over time. The more information it collects, the more perfect its self-upgrade function will be. This is an evolutionary manifestation of alternative life. Until now, let alone remote control of electronic instruments, as long as it exists on this Earth, even if the North and South poles are far apart, Sky can use itself as a signal source and starting point to control electronic products lower than it in the shortest time. "Boss, it's done. Launch in 10 minutes. "Yeah." In New York City, the battle center, Li Jing looked at the time and space tunnel that had been completely closed, and didn't feel too sorry or anything. The high-tech technology possessed by this alien fleet was controlled by him to explore the split body not long after the time and space tunnel was opened. In addition to a limited number of technologies, including gravity technology, mechanical technology, space navigation technology, and energy control technology, there is nothing else worth peeping at. Seeing Li Jing looking over, Loki smiled slightly, and then turned his attention to Thor in the distance. At this time, Thor's face was tired, his body was covered with bloodstains, and his figure was in a mess. He and Iron Man Tony were back to back, resisting the continuous attacks from several reincarnation legions. But that was all. There were only 2 people left in the Avengers. Even the strongest Hulk was captured after being hit by the enemy leader. What's more, there were fewer and fewer alien troops around. The pressure on the 2 of them could only get heavier. Tony suddenly laughed inexplicably. "What?" Thor didn't look back. The enemy's attack method in front of him was too weird, and he couldn't afford to be distracted at all. Buzz boom tilde. Tony shot out energy in his hand, and once again forced back a black-armored strong man who had attacked countless times. "I was actually thinking, how nice it would be if those damn alien teams could hold on a little longer." I thought so too. The enemy of my enemy. Use it to share the pressure. Bang! Thor swung out his hammer with all his strength, without even looking at the result, and took a wooden hidden weapon for Tony's back of the head. "Not bad." Tony didn't reply, because there was no time to say anything. With the collapse of the alien army, The troops around the two of them increased several times again. In addition, according to the news from S.H.I.E.L.D. before, they were just struggling to survive without any backup reinforcements. Suddenly, the fire shone, and even in broad daylight, the bright light in the northern sky was very dazzling. "What is this?" "What?" Thor's question did not bring Tony back to his senses. Wearing steel armor, but with serious energy consumption, he was immediately knocked out dozens of meters away by the continuous attacks. "Hey, take care of yourself first, my good brother." Thor was about to step forward to rescue Tony, but was blocked by a figure that came in from the side. It was Loki. He had been watching from the side for a long time, and finally showed up at this time. "Loki, it's me. Are you surprised? Don't look at me with such a strange look. It will make me feel that I don't exist." Loki was still smiling, and it seemed like he was mocking the other party. "Is this the result you wanted? Loki, look at this world, and all the harm you have suffered because of your willfulness. With the help of external forces, do you really think you can get what you want? Without any backup, you can only be abandoned as a pawn." "Enough. It's the gods. It's you who abandon me." Loki's face looked grim, and he roared loudly, "Don't talk to me with a shitty face that you are doing it for my own good and considering me. This is not the gods, and you are not qualified to preach to me. If you want to say something, go to hell and talk it out. Don't worry, your father will go down to accompany you soon. That's also your father, Loki." "No." Loki raised the scepter in his hand and smiled slightly. "No, he has never been. If you have anything to say, let's say it when you meet." "Kill." The scepter fell, and the reincarnation army around, which had stopped attacking, immediately rose up and attacked Thor again, and this time it was even more fierce and stronger, with more people. Roar, roar, roar. More than a dozen cage-level warriors attacked at the same time, and Thor was immediately in the greatest crisis. This was because the reincarnation core did not use its full strength. Otherwise, no matter how powerful Thor's hammer was, it would not be enough to defend against such a dense and powerful attack frequency. The time and space distortion that Jing mentioned is here. The 5th level time and space have entered the stage of space navigation, but the backbone of this time and space is still pitifully weak. Even Thor himself, if he did not have a divine weapon in his hand, his original strength would probably not be as strong as that of a Jonin. Not only Thor, Jonin is just a measuring stick. In Jing's view, this kind of Marvel world, no matter how perverted it is described in the comics, the movie world is not enough to be called a 5th level time and space. Is that a nuclear bomb? I heard from the one-eyed man before that a nuclear bomb was going to be dropped here, but the energy I saved up with great difficulty seems to be useless. Did you do it? Tony stood up, and the armor on his chest was still emitting sparks of electricity. This was obviously the wound left by the previous attack, but he didn't care about it. Instead, he looked straight at a young man in a black robe not far ahead. "You are very smart. I hope you can survive and work for me. Don't worry, your salary will naturally highlight your worth. How about it? Consider it." Chapter 216, Spiritual Beast Legion. Jing took a step and walked to Tony casually. It was no exaggeration to say that a person who could create the iron armor by himself was the world's top talent. What's more, the iron armor named Mark has been updated and replaced, and Tony was the main force in completing this project. There was even the development and utilization of new unknown energy, which was also done by him alone. So, if he could get the full assistance of such a genius, it would also be a great help and promotion for Jing. "Don't be ridiculous. Working for you? I'm not good at fighting and killing. Or, are you going to hire me to be your boss? If so, I can still consider it." The iron armor waved his arm, and Tony's voice came out of it, but the tone was obviously just a joke, and it had no other effect at all. "Whatever, what I need is your brain. As for the rest, it's dispensable, of course, including your mouth." Jing looked normal, and his smile was still there. "Oh, this is really not good news." Suddenly, Tony raised his palms and said to Jing, "But I have no intention of handing myself over to others." Whoosh till the red light burst out, lasers flew like shuttles, and two beams of light passed directly to Li Jing's body. Hiss hiss, a few wisps of green smoke arose. Li Jing was too lazy to avoid such an attack. This kind of laser beam, let alone Li Jing's strong body, even the Pluto armor he was wearing, and even the outermost advanced nano-protective equipment, could not be penetrated or scratched. The difference was so big that it was not even as good as the pure physical threat posed by the Hulk to Li Jing. Killing is not my hobby, but passive defense is a feeling I hate. Tony, my patience is limited. If you still can't see the current situation clearly, then I can only do as I said before. At this time, Tony also heard the report of the intelligent system Jarvis in the iron armor. Under the system scan, even the outermost layer of the enemy's defense was not broken. Sir, you should listen to my advice. Even if you use up all your energy, you will not pose any threat or harm to him. Is there any other way? Tony frowned slightly. He did not answer Li Jing's question, but cut off the external communication, trying to find a breakthrough in the current situation as soon as possible. No, sir, after calculation, the speed of the steel armor cannot escape the pursuit of the opponent. I mean, is there any feasibility to defeat him? It was rare that Jarvis was still not panicked at this time, but Tony, who got the answer, didn't know whether to cry or laugh at this time. There is no chance, sir. Hutilda. Tony breathed a sigh of relief. Although he was mentally prepared, this straightforward result was still not very pleasant. The previous detection results of Jarvis showed that the energy in the opponent's body was as high as tens of millions. You know, the annual power supply of the new energy system of Stark Tower is only a few tens of this value. Is it still necessary to fight? Don't talk about beliefs. The question is how to fight. I can agree to your request, but what about my friends? Should you let them go? As if giving up on himself, Tony took off the protective helmet of his armor. It would be best if you can think it through. As for your friends, coming out now will only cause trouble for me. Don't worry, they are not going to die yet. Li Jing smiled slightly, but also refused Tony's advance. Okay, what about him? Tony did not expect that a word could change anything, but turned his head to look at the position of Thor, who had been knocked to the ground and was about to take his head. Li Jing smiled again. Stop it. The voice was not loud, but Loki felt that it appeared in his mind. He was slightly stunned. When he reacted, the coldness in his eyes was slowly suppressed, and the scepter in his hand was put down again. Why? He is one of the people I want to kill the most. Loki turned around and looked at Li Jing. If you can lead the army to the Azure realm, then you can choose to start. In one sentence, Loki said nothing more, because he really couldn't do it. Since the moment he was exiled, he had lost the right to use the Rainbow Bridge. If he wanted to return to the realm of God, he must be led by someone from the realm of God. What's more, what's the use of going alone? Since you want to go, you must be sure to attack in, otherwise it will only add to the laughingstock. Thor was captured. Tony surrendered, whether it was true or not, plus Natasha and several others who were captured before. The incident here finally came to an end, but it was still a long way from the real end of the matter, and now it was just the beginning. The center of New York City, within a radius of dozens of kilometers, was now surrounded by the country's army. Looking out, the sky was full of fighter jets gliding past. In Li Jing's perception, the main roads leading to various places were all blocked, and defense facilities such as fortresses and walls were being built quickly. As for armed forces such as tanks and armored vehicles, they were everywhere and numerous. All actions were being carried out quickly and intensively. At this time, the country, and even the world, had obviously regarded Li Jing and others as a great enemy invasion, and they were thorns in the flesh and eyes. They would not be happy if they were not removed, and they would not be happy if they were not pulled out. But Li Jing didn't care about these at all. The lives of ordinary people were too fragile. It was not that he looked down on them, but that their nature was like this. Although the emergence of high technology could make up for this gap, it was still incomparable at the level of evolution. Since you want to play, let's have fun together. Li Jing smiled slightly, raised his hand and waved, and hundreds of reincarnated soldiers suddenly moved together and gathered behind him. Psychic technique. Bang 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 till the white smoke scattered, and more than a dozen huge figures appeared in front of Li Jing. The Zhao Snake Clan, each of which was dozens of feet away, was a huge monster. Moreover, it was not over yet. Summoning technique, summoning technique, summoning technique, bang 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 bang. The reincarnation army, hundreds of people used the summoning technique at the same time. For a moment, the whole field was shrouded in white smoke. When the white smoke dispersed, what appeared in front of everyone were hundreds of huge ninja beasts with different appearances. 100 birds, 100 tigers and leopards, 100 giant rhinos, 100 demon apes, and 100 poisonous creatures of various styles. Each of them was more than 10 meters in size. 500, combined as one, were enough to gather into a terrifying and powerful force. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 217, Human Hearts Are Unpredictable. What is this? Although there are only 500 of them, such an army, with a uniform combination, has a majestic and powerful momentum that suddenly rises to the sky. Loki, Tony, the captured Thor, and even the 5 people of II who are hiding in the dark, all of them opened their eyes wide and were shocked when they saw this scene. Sky, has the communication been established? The spiritual beast army gathered, but Li Jing did not give the order to attack immediately. Boss, it's ready. Well, let's start. Li Jing nodded and turned to look at Loki, who was still distracted. Loki, it's time for you to perform. You, the future king, must give a good speech and let your people feel your great power and fraternity. Well, Loki came back to his senses and didn't ask any more questions after hearing this, because the next action of Sky had already told him what to do. In the air, a little light suddenly appeared, and the combination of the wandering light became a large screen in just a short time. The screen was densely divided into thousands of grid perspectives, all of which were images from all over the world. The Sky could control the movement of free electrons in the air and use these energy sources to form a display. This simple thing was nothing to it. Fury, the one-eyed director of S.H.I.E.L.D., was also watching this scene on the screen, but here, the picture showed the tall figure of Loki leaning against the ninja beast army. He was holding a scepter, wearing golden armor, and the smile at the corner of his mouth looked so comfortable and happy. Sir, we still can't find the source of the signal. Adjutant Hill reported that the picture on the screen was suddenly inserted by breaking through the system, and the screens in the entire space carrier were controlled by outsiders. If this kind of thing didn't happen, we really didn't know that our defense system was so useless. No need, just take a look. Fury had a blank expression on his face, and Adjutant Hill didn't say anything more, because Loki in the picture had already started his speech, as well as his road to kingship. My people, your great king is about to rule the world. Accept it, accept my love and mercy for you, accept my spur and encouragement to you, support it. No matter how stubbornly you resist, it will only increase casualties. My army will use their powerful strength to punish the resistors one by one. Shit. Go eat shit. In Washington, the United States, the busiest street is already full of people. This group of people are all looking at the image of Loki on the huge advertising screen. Damn it, is this guy crazy? London, England, rule? Who needs such a guy? Sweden, kill him. This son of a bitch. Afghanistan, God, forgive this lost lamb. Believer, damn it, blow his ass. Grass, China network, blast the upstairs. China network. All over the world, there are many people who are afraid that war will come and hurt this peaceful world again. But more people were still filled with indignation and anger. After living in peace for too long, people would probably feel irritable and restless. The appearance of Loki might just be a trigger. Human beings are destined not to be content with peace. Whether it was a speech or a way to incite hatred, Loki continued vividly, but Li Jing focused his attention elsewhere. The Yisai group of 5 people came closer, and Li Jing smiled slightly, his face normal. I thought you were fascinated by the show. What? You came out at this time, can't you wait? Li Jing moved his fingers slightly, and the blue cosmic cube turned a few circles at his fingertips. There is no need, Kigaku, you know my purpose, give me this thing, and I will never get involved in other things. Yisai spoke, and there was no strange color in his red pupils. Haha, really? I dare not believe your promise. Otherwise, why did you hide and dare not see anyone before? Yisai's face turned cold. Are you going to fall out? Although the two parties in the cooperation had never helped each other, the plan to weaken the other party's combat power by fighting in advance was a failure. Who would have thought that the other party did not do anything personally, whether it was the local team or the alien invasion army? They all disappeared so easily, and even the legions summoned by this guy were not consumed much, or more precisely, almost no one was lost. Kigaku, although your combat power is high, it is nothing to me. The reason I said this to you is that I am thinking of the cooperation agreement between us. Don't take my kindness as tolerance or fear. Yisai took a step forward, his momentum was hidden and ready to go, and the red light in his eyes stared directly at Li Jing. Don't talk so nicely, such words can only make me look down on you even more. Nothing else will work. You want the cosmic cube? Sure. Use force to solve it. I want to see what's so special about you from the Lonely Lamp universe. Asshole, you're looking for death. Before I could speak, it was Tovi, the sturdy man behind him, who couldn't bear it and shouted first. Not only that, his body moved with the sound. As the words fell, Tovi's figure was already close to Li Jing, and he punched hard. Boom! There was a loud noise, and smoke and dust rose up. I stood by and watched, unmoved. If it was before, he would have blamed Tovi for being reckless, but at this moment, Tovi's move was somewhat what he wanted. Another punch. Tovi's face was ferocious, and he followed Li Jing's speed to intensify his offensive, but this was too slow for Li Jing. He let the fist twin pass, shook his head slightly, and his figure had stopped in place without dodging. You don't seem to understand the current situation at all. Bang! Li Jing caught Tovi's kick with one hand, and clenched his 5 fingers tightly. Kaka with a scream, blood and flesh splattered, Tovi's shin bones were crushed into pieces. Before 3 moves, Tovi, who was only stronger than Thor, was already seriously injured. Asshole, looking for death. Whoosh whoosh! 2 strong winds came. Li Jing calmly dodged and left his original position, and the 2 attackers did not chase him. After stopping, they stood in front of Tovi to defend. These 2 people were Moya and Cass, who belonged to the same team as Tovi. Although they often had disagreements with Tovi, they still knew what to do and when. Why don't you take action? It's too fantasy to want to test my background with just these trash. Chapter 218 The Goddess's Gift. Haha! Yisai suddenly laughed out loud, and then his face suddenly turned cold. Yes, I found that I have always underestimated you, Kigaku. Yisai, have experienced so many times in time and space, and you are the only one who can give me many surprises. Come on, you and I have our own persistence and stance in our hearts, so let the one who survives in the end take control of everything. Yisai shouted loudly, and his momentum suddenly spread out like a dragon or a dragon. The strong wind blew, and with his body as the center, it suddenly expanded in all directions. Red eyes, black hair, slender figure. Yisai was dressed in a blood-red armor like black, and his strong momentum soared into the sky for a while. It looks good, fully equipped, and full of momentum, but I don't know how the real combat power is. Come on, don't let me down too much. Li Jing smiled slightly and waved to Yisai. Arrogant. Yisai's eyes turned cold, and he stepped on the ground. In a breath, his figure appeared beside Li Jing. He kicked sideways, and the strong wind swept across like a steel whip. Snap! Li Jing crossed his arms to resist, but was still knocked out by Yisai's huge force, until he slid dozens of meters away. Swish! Without waiting for Li Jing to react, Yisai's absolute speed had already approached again. This time, the attack was faster and more powerful than the previous one. Boom! Crack! Crack! With a loud bang, it hurts the eardrums. The ground under Yisai and Li Jing's feet had already been torn apart and collapsed. It was just 2 attacks, just a punch and a kick. Yisai's martial arts power has just been revealed, but his pure physical strength alone seems to be no less than Li Jing's. Kigaku, is this all you can do? Boom! The attack continued, and each blow was heavier than the last. I only used a third of my strength. Can't you bear it? Boom boom. Yisai clenched his fists and hit them several times in a row. The red pupils in his eyes were shining brightly. In that case, then go to hell. Everything you have belongs to me. With a colder look, Yisai stepped on the ground with both feet, and his palms cut horizontally like a knife. With a slight sound, Yisai's hand blade with red light had already cut through Li Jing's body. It was extremely simple, just like a hot knife cutting butter. Snap, snap. With two slight sounds, the body fell to the ground. Li Jing was cut in half, but Yisai suddenly frowned, and his expression changed to be unusually cold. It's just a trick. No matter how ingenious it is, it's just a waste of time. Yisai sneered, closed his eyes, and suddenly opened them again. Buzz! A strange wave spread out, and the space around I suddenly twisted and changed as if it were an illusion. Not only did the corpse on the ground disappear, but he himself was still standing behind Moya and others, as if he had not taken a step at all. Captain, how can you start first? Let's go first. Moya spoke, and I frowned. He did not answer Moya's question, but looked up at Li Jing in front of him, who seemed to have no signs of moving at all. Illusion. The previous battle scene was indeed an illusion, but what about now? I frowned again. He was not too good at mental skills. At least, there was still a big gap with his own melee ability, and just looking at the opponent's way of using skills without anyone noticing, even Moya, who was the best at mental power in the team, was far behind him. No, it should be said that there was no comparison. Kigaku, I know you can hear me. Although I am not as good as you in controlling my mental power, it is wishful thinking to defeat me with these things. I spoke, but he did not speak to the Li Jing in front of him. What's worse, even Moya and others who were still asking him were ignored by I and treated as if they were nothing. Snap! With a slap on his waist, a gem on I's belt suddenly lit up, and in his hand, he had already grasped a golden crown inlaid with gems. Kigaku, this crown is something I got from a mythical time and space. It has no other function, but the only attribute it has is that it is the best nemesis of your illusion. I smiled slightly, and the crown in his hand was already worn on his head. Buzz! Just when he put it on, a faint golden light emanated, and I felt that his whole body was suddenly shocked, as if he instantly had the power to break all illusions and filth. The crown is called the gift of the goddess. Since the hero who saved the world ascended the throne, he was disturbed by the evil spirits he killed and couldn't sleep all day and night. As time went by, the hero became increasingly haggard. But one day, the goddess in the sky discovered this scene. She pitied the hero's experience and old age, so she gave a crown to the lower world, so that the hero could rest and enjoy his old age. The gift of the goddess. This crown is not heavy, but like a feather, it makes people relax and refresh their minds. I raised his mouth, and as expected, the surrounding space changed again. The breeze blew, and Moya and the other 5 gathered together. The surrounding scenery was the same, and there was no big change. But, what's going on? Moya, Tovi, and Cass exclaimed in surprise, because this was too weird. They and others suddenly recovered to the time when they just appeared, and even Tovi's injuries no longer existed. It was too sudden. What on earth was this? Kigaku, I said the same thing again. I really underestimated you. I didn't expect you to perform the same illusion attack on the 5 of us at the same time. I's eyes narrowed, and the coldness contained in them was even stronger. It's just an appetizer. How about it? Are you satisfied? Li Jing smiled slightly. He didn't care about I's tone at all, but was somewhat interested in the crown on his head. Li Jing used different methods to perform illusions on 5 people at the same time. For example, I and Moya, who have higher mental power, will give priority to external changes in the environment and space, rather than directly operating on their feelings. As for the other Tovi and others, Li Jing chose to directly control the 5 senses, but one of them gave Li Jing a little surprise. It was the exquisite woman who never spoke. This woman was able to find out that something was wrong first, but she didn't say anything to help her teammates, which surprised Li Jing a little. After one attack, he actually discovered many interesting places. Li Jing's mouth corners were hooked, and his eyes moved slightly. He felt that things were becoming more and more interesting. Li Jing and Yi Sai were still in a standoff, while Loki on the other side had finished his speech. Under his leadership, the 500 reincarnation legions, carrying their own huge spiritual beasts, had launched a crushing attack on the surrounding national armies. Thanks to the book Friend Classic 1944 for the 10,000 starting coins reward, I became the second helmsman of this book. Thanks to classmate Diamond for the 588 reward, and congratulations on becoming the third helmsman of this book. Thank you again. Muah. Today is the third update, although the sincerity is small, just to show my gratitude. Cactus is very clumsy. I can only practice more, spend more time, and try to write more, so that I can update a few more chapters for all book friends to read happily. Thank you. By the way, I'm asking for votes here. All book friends, please give me whatever you have. Don't pity me, please whip me as much as you want. Oh tilde yeah tilde. Chapter 219. Two powerful encounters. Go go go. Emergency support for line 1. Everyone go. Command center. Command center. Request an airstrike. Request an airstrike. Die. Bugs. Fire. Shoot. Da tilde boom 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 tilde. The machine guns roared, and the war was in full swing, but this fierce battlefield was just an extremely common entertainment place for the Jiao Snake clan. There were more than a dozen Jiao snakes that were dozens of feet long. They crushed all the way in front, and everywhere they passed was a ruin. As for guns and artillery bombardment, this level of attack was simply useless to their defense. Just like scratching an itch, 500 reincarnation legions followed closely behind, raiding, assassinating, and ambushing. As dead people, they were not affected even if their defense was broken by heavy blows. After a few breaths, they would recover intact again and fight against other parties again. Even the spiritual beasts around them were no exception. Crush, absolute crush, tanks, lightning ninjutsu, powerful collisions, deep sand pits, no matter which one, can make the tank army fall into a hard battle. Fortresses and bunkers can't withstand the repeated collisions of huge dragon snakes, not to mention that there are more than 500 shadow-level strongmen behind them. This height is like flat ground for them. Guns, missiles, bombers. These obstacles to the reincarnation army are also very limited. One is that the reincarnation army can't kill at all, and the other is that the reincarnation army is not only passively defensive. Bird-summoning beasts, hundreds of strong men who are proficient in clay bombs, all attack together. Wherever the birds pass, the ground is covered with explosions and flames. It's just like the end of the world. Loki smiled, standing on a high-rise building that he had just occupied, overlooking everything happening in front of him. The combat power of this army is indeed stronger than he imagined, and it is precisely because of this that he can laugh so easily and naturally. My good brother, did you see that? This is the result I want. The king will definitely be my position. Loki opened his hand and clenched it, and the madness in his eyes was even more obvious. You will pay the price for your mistakes, including that guy. Thor stood behind Loki and turned his head to look at the almost invisible Jing in the distance. At this time, he was not tied up, because there was no need. Haha. Take care of yourself first, brother. Nanoworms are really good stuff. Loki glanced at Thor slightly. Not only Thor, but also the other Iron Man. Tony was no exception. Hey, you should reminisce about the past later. What's that name? Oh, it's Loki. Should we do something? It's not good to just talk. After all, I am also one of you. It's not good to pretend without making some contributions. Tony was wearing an iron armor and showing his face, talking a lot of nonsense. Loki's face looked a little ugly. If it was up to him, no matter how talented or capable such a chatterbox was, he should have his tongue cut off before saying anything else. Stop talking nonsense. You don't need to remind me what to do. As for what you should do, just shut up and show your ears. Ah, I don't understand what you're saying. You can shut up, but how can you show your ears? Do you want me to make a hole in my helmet? Puff. Thor almost laughed out loud. Although he was a prisoner, he turned his head away a little embarrassedly. Shut up. Loki's face looked extremely ugly, and he wanted to swing the scepter in his hand at Tony. Boom! A loud noise interrupted Loki's anger and Tony's nonsense. The three of them didn't look at each other, but turned their heads to look at the direction of the sound. There was boom! Another loud noise, this time from midair. Where the sound broke out, the surrounding clouds were blown away. Obviously, some kind of existence was doing something there. Boom! The loud noises continued one after another. The previous ones were just the beginning, and the loud noises now were getting more and more dense and compact. It's a gas explosion. What? Thor didn't quite understand what Tony meant. Speed, power, energy, no matter which one exceeds the limit of the air, will produce such a gas explosion effect. Looking at the current situation, energy can be excluded, plus the location of that place. I think you should know what's going on. You mean? Thor's eyes widened. It should be right. Tony nodded. This kind of thing, how can? Thor frowned. It's not that he hasn't seen stronger, it's not that he hasn't seen faster. The speed of the Rainbow Bridge is calculated in light years, but the opponent can do this with his flesh alone. Then what can his proud Protoss be regarded as? This is also why Jing felt that this time and space was too deformed. As a Protoss, he was pierced by a sharp knife and killed casually. The Azure realm is indeed too cheap in the movie. Boom! Another explosion. Jing and Sai were immediately hit by each other's strength, but neither of them hesitated, and they moved in an instant, and the two of them fought in close combat again. Bang! Fists and feet have no eyes. Upper block and lower sweep. Jing and Sai did not speak to each other, and each move went straight to the other's vital points. The killing of interests has now turned into a battle for survival. Secret method, Dragon Elephant 9 kills. Killing fist, shock kill. Dong! The two of them used fists to fight each other, and their strength had already exploded against each other. Sai, the fist force came one after another, one wave higher than the other. After 9 times, his fist force was like a tide, more than 10 times higher. Jing, shock kill, a purely physical frequency vibration method, endless. This kind of attack can be said to be able to break through defense. Bang! A series of vibrations. Jing and Sai were both pushed back. In the air, the two people standing upright, their palms were both seriously injured and trembling. Good. I didn't expect that I was not the only one who concealed my fighting power. You really surprise me more and more. But, Jingjai, I want to see how many attacks you can take from me. Sai clenched his palms hard, and his powerful recovery ability has made his palms intact. Why are you talking so much? Come on. Jing smiled slightly. His face was normal. Humphrey, with a cold snort, Sai slapped his waist again. The gem on his waist lit up, and a pitch-black spear suddenly appeared in his hand. The spear, the whole black, is 2 meters 4 or 5 long, with engravings on the pole and a sharp light on the tip. This is an absolute killing weapon. Group number 170.756.165. Chapter 220 God's Punishment. Sai stepped on the air, shook the spear in his hand, and instantly crossed the distance between them. The extremely sharp spear tip was already aimed at Jing's chest and stabbed down. Dang! There was a crisp sound, but it was Jing's fan sword that was already in his hand. The blade and the spear tip collided, and a series of sparks of light were immediately wiped out. Dang! The two of them kept fighting, and every collision contained extremely powerful power. Sai became more and more courageous, and with a sneer on his face, he stepped up his offensive against Jing again. The spear was called Ghost Bite, which was a rare and fierce divine weapon. At the beginning, it was just to get it, but it cost Sai a lot of energy and time. His face became colder, and a strange smile appeared at the corner of Sai's mouth. This Ghost Bite was not just a simple killing weapon. Dang! Sparks flew, and the blades trembled. In just a short period of time, the two had fought for more than 100 rounds. But at this time, Jing couldn't help but frown. The fan sword in his hand was a treasure that cost a lot of points to create. It has plasticity and growth, has a certain indestructible attribute, and has a large space. However, such a treasure, facing the enemy, was suppressed by the opponent's strange spear, and it was getting weaker and weaker. It seemed that as the battle lasted longer, The fan sword in his hand absorbed more and more spiritual energy and energy by the strange spear. Open. Li Jing's mind moved, and the pattern in his eyes had changed to Wangxian. He looked at the weapon in the opponent's hand again with Wangxian eyes, and indeed a different picture appeared. The spear in Yi Sai's hand was surrounded by a black smoke. These smokes were like ghosts, waving their fangs and claws, like a deformed monster with 1,000 faces. Every time his sword blade collides with the spear, the spiritual charm in the sword blade will be swallowed up by these smoke ghosts. The longer the time, the more times the collision occurs, and the more serious the situation will be. Li Jing's mind moved, and a green netherworld flame suddenly covered the sword blade. Dang, another collision. Li Jing even heard the wailing and roaring of the spear in Yi Sai's hand, and the smoke formed by the ghosts was also burned and withered by the netherworld fire. Yi Sai retracted his spear and immediately retreated. With a frown on his face, he also noticed the abnormality of the weapon in his hand. But fighting is not something that anyone can withdraw at will. The sword in Li Jing's hand has stretched out in a breath, and the tip of the sword closely follows Yi Sai's speed, directly crossing a distance of several hundred meters to his chest. When the surprise attack came too fast, Yi Sai could only choose to use the spear in his hand to bounce the blade into the air, but once again, the ghost on the spear was burned and damaged by the netherworld flame again. Looking for death, Yi Sai shouted coldly, and a beast-skin scroll suddenly appeared in his hand. The scroll was not big, only less than a foot long, but the energy fluctuations emanating from it made even Li Jing frown when he saw it. Forbidden law, God's punishment from heaven, Yi Sai sneered, and the scroll in his hand was already crushed into pieces, without any hesitation at all. A strange wave spread out, with the scattered and floating scroll fragments as the center, and it seemed to slowly and quickly spread throughout the void. The range it covered was so wide that it covered most of New York City. The range of this thing seems to be very large. Do you want to destroy everything? You should know that when we reach this level, ordinary attacks will not have any effect at all. Don't waste your efforts, Jingjai. I stood in the void and sneered, using such low-level means to test me. Do you already know that you will definitely lose? Or do you not take me seriously at all? You are wrong. Li Jing shook his head slightly. I am just a little curious. You want to kill me, but you don't use concentrated energy attacks but use this seemingly powerful but actually extremely dispersed covering ability. What are you thinking, Humphrey? You will know when the time comes. I sneered, with no intention of explaining. Okay. Li Jing had a blank expression on his face and casually drew a sword flower. But it's not okay to waste time like this. The battle between us still needs to continue to have a result. Swish. His body moved with the sound. Li Jing was so fast that when the last word was spit out, his figure had already arrived in front of I at the same time as the note. Yi Sai sneered again. He had no fear in the face of the sharp blade above his head, and he even lacked the intention to dodge. Swish. The sharp blade cut through the air, and Li Jing frowned. Illusion? With his dynamic vision, is there any substitute method that can avoid the capture of these eyes? Yi Sai in front of him seemed illusory, and the sharp blade cut through without any damage. It was exactly like the situation when Ukayabita used the time and space ninjutsu. What on earth is this? Is it a time and space ability? Or is it the beast skin scroll that was activated before? Yi Sai's wild laughter came, and then he suddenly retracted it, and his face turned cold again. Kigaku, the value of this scroll is worthy of your identity. Look forward to it. I believe its effect will not disappoint you too much. It's not the wind that moves, nor the people move. Nothing has changed. But Li Jing suddenly looked serious, his perception spread, and he stared at every move and every plant around him, because he had discovered that something was wrong. Something was extremely wrong. The slight sound continued, and the surroundings were terribly quiet except for this little sound. Li Jing suddenly found that the ground, which was originally 1,000 meters away from him, was getting closer and closer, until his feet stepped on the ground. This feeling was like a person was not moving, but the planet under his feet was rising. It was really too weird. Li Jing was suddenly shocked again, because his idea of looking up to check where I was failed. Just looking up became so difficult in this moment, and even impossible to do at all. What is going on, boss? Get out of here quickly. What? The sudden reminder of the sky made Li Jing slightly stunned. Boss, there is no time to explain. The space here is changing. It has been temporarily compressed into a pseudo-two-dimensional space by a tremendous force. Leave quickly, or it will be too late. Li Jing was shocked. It was the first time he heard of such a thing, and it was also the first time he encountered such a weird situation. Without giving it much thought, Li Jing dodged and wanted to enter his own space-time first. Chapter 221, Dust-Escaped Sword. Failure. Or failure. He couldn't even enter his own space-time. The space here had changed, and he couldn't even open the space channel. Sky. Is there any other way? With a slight perception, Li Jing knew that the changed space was too large and too vast. It was impossible to rush out just by speed. Boss, the cosmic cube. Cosmic cube? Yes, boss. The space power it possesses cannot be suppressed by the blockade here. If you want to leave here, you can only rely on the power of the cosmic cube. How to do it? In this case, Li Jing would not hesitate and took out the cosmic cube in his black robe. Boss, if you want to use the cosmic cube, you must. Far above the sky, thousands of meters away, I stood in the void, watching the changes below and sneered slightly. At this time, the ground, including most of New York City, had been compressed and transformed into a scroll. This scroll could clearly see the scenery and characters inside under the slight flow, including Li Jing and other characters. National troops, Reincarnation Corps, even Loki, Thor, and Iron Man Tony were not able to escape. Captain, using this great power to destroy the enemy, will the cube be damaged? Behind on a small battleship, Moya and the other four were there, and it was Moya himself who asked the question. Humphrey, you underestimated that treasure too much. Not to mention that it will be damaged. Even the advanced system carried by the guy below will be presented intact. Also, think more about how to maximize the benefits, and don't worry about the plan I am executing. I waved his hand slightly, closed his eyes and rested, without turning his head. Yes, Captain. Knowing I's character very well, Moya did not ask any more questions, otherwise he would not only get no good, but also make I unhappy. Time passed slowly, and there was silence in the field. It was less than a few minutes, and the scroll below suddenly shook, emitting a halo of light. The time has come. I suddenly opened his eyes, and a little bit of brilliance was brewing in his blood-red pupils. Kigaku, if it weren't for the serious matter, I would really like to have a good fight with you, but now, you should die quietly. I's eyes turned cold, and he raised his arm and swung it suddenly. Ha! With I's arm, the scroll below was suddenly torn into two pieces from the center. Then, this scroll seemed to be activated. Under its self-tearing, it shattered into tiny bits of light in a short moment and dissipated. The scroll dissipated, and even all the people and things in it were no exception. What could be left on the ground was only a vast blank area. There were no humans, no trees, no tall buildings, and even no grass. New York City has completely become a historical fault, because all its historical symbols have disappeared with the disappearance of the scroll. National troops, Reincarnation Corps, even important figures such as Loki and Thor, and Li Jing, whom Yisai wanted to get rid of the most, all disappeared without a trace. On the satellite screen, this is all the situation that was filmed. All over the world, all countries that could get the news were silent and speechless for a while. Is this still human? Is this still a man-made power? Even if God comes to the world, the power he possesses can only be like this. How many times have we heard about the destruction of the world and the end of the world? How many times have we performed it? How many times have we described it in the story? And now it has really appeared in front of everyone, and everyone has found that this moment seems so unreal, and even people dare not believe it. What people all over the world think is not important to Yisai at all. At this moment, the things he cares about did not develop as expected, which made him feel a little irritated. The blue cube did not appear, and the high-level system could not detect the specific location. Under this situation, there is only one result, that is, the target person is not dead yet. Kigaku, not dead yet. How is this possible? Under such a great power, If he was not the user of the scroll, even I himself would not have the slightest confidence to escape with his life in such a situation. Kigaku, you have surprised me again. I roared loudly, facing the void. What? How is it possible? Moya and the other four also exclaimed in surprise. He was not dead yet? He was able to survive in such a situation? How could such a thing happen? Clap, clap. The sound of applause came, and Dai suddenly turned his head to look. As expected, the person who came was Li Jing, who was not dead at all, and he was not the only one. On the several large birds behind him, there were also Loki, Tony and a group of people. You really caused me a lot of trouble. If it weren't for my good luck, I might have really fallen into your hands this time. Li Jing's face was normal, but anyone could feel the strong killing intent he was brewing at the moment. Really? But you survived. This is not good news for me. The murderous intent emanating from Yisai became more and more intense, and his blood-red eyes looked even more ruthless at this moment. Of course it's not good news for you, because this time, I'm going to let you know what it means to be worse off than dead. Hey, Pa! Li Jing clasped his hands together, and the indifference in his eyes was simply terrifying. Dust escape, original realm stripping technique. Suddenly, a transparent and colorless cylinder suddenly rushed towards the location of Yisai and others. Get out of the way! Swish swish swish. Yisai and the other 5 people moved to avoid it instantly, and the warship that remained in place was decomposed into molecular state by Li Jing's dust escape in just a breath, and dissipated. Li Jing did not stop attacking, and followed the trend. The transparent cylinder once again slid towards Yisai and others. Following closely, the 5 people of Yisai scattered and dodged, moving from the void. Li Jing moved his palm, and the cylinder gathered by the dust escape was immediately compressed into a smaller cylinder, and the speed suddenly increased several times. Kai, the width of 2 fingers, like a sharp sword that was dozens of feet long. The sharp sword cut through the air, and the piercing sound made the space vibrate. Scream. From the attack to now, it was only less than 10 seconds, and the young man named Cass was cut in half by the dust-escaped sword. Cass asshole, thank you for the 10,000 starting coins reward from the Friends of Classic 1944, and become the first hall master of this book. Congratulations. And thank you to the friends who have always been loyal to this book. Thank you for your votes, rewards and all the strong support. Thank you again. Chapter 222, The Overlapping Formation. Moya and Tovi shouted coldly, but they did not rush forward to attack. Instead, they each took out a weapon and stood in front of Cass to defend. As for Cass, who was cut into 2 sections by the dust-escaped sword, he did not die so easily. With a roar. Not only did not the slightest blood flow out of the cross-section of Cass's upper and lower body, but also a bunch of poisonous insects crawled out in a short moment. The poisonous insects were like a tide, all gray, and only the size of a fingertip. Cass's upper and lower bodies merged into one. These poisonous insects had already restored the injuries that would have killed ordinary people in just a breath. Kigaku, you want to kill them with such a simple attack? Then you underestimate them too much. Yisai sneered, but his figure suddenly retreated as he spoke. Form a formation. Moya opened his mouth, and except for Yisai, the other 4 people dispersed from the void at the same time, and instantly trapped Li Jing in the center. Looking for death, Li Jing's expression turned cold, and the dust-escape sword in his hand had already transformed into a black yin-yang sword. This energy is the same as the power of the 6 paths, and it has a great restraining effect on other energy systems. Without any intention of holding back, the yin-yang sword had just appeared and had already crossed a distance of 100 meters to reach the woman Moya. It seems that if there is no other way, this blow is enough to separate her head and body and kill her. Moya turned a blind eye to the approaching attack and opened her arms with the other 3 people without any defense. With a tremor, the sword blade composed of the yin-yang force actually stagnated and shrank less than 10 centimeters from Moya's chest. Li Jing narrowed his eyes slightly, and the strength in his hand suddenly increased several times. Crack! The yin-yang sword seemed to be injected with a shot of cardiotonic, and then went deeper again, and the sticky space at the tip of the sword seemed like a glass. with tiny cracks visible to the naked eye. Moya's face changed, and then turned pale and colorless. Not only was she like this, but the three people in other directions were in the same situation and state. The Duokang array is a formation that can instantly transfer and evenly distribute the enemy's attack. It belongs to a kind of space array. It not only has the ability to seal, block, and suppress, but also has the effect of combining one's own attacks into one. In theory, the more people use this Duokang array at the same time, the stronger the power will be. When it reaches the highest point, it can use this superposition method to kill gods and demons. But theory is theory after all. It is not a simple thing to use this array, not to mention the harsh fit of the array to the user. Even Moya and others spent several years running in, borrow the force. The enemy in front of him was too strong. Moya didn't care about the blood that had already overflowed from the corner of his mouth. Together with the other three people, each of them took out a bead that looked like a night pearl, red, blue, yellow, and green. 4 beads, each with different colors. Although it is not known what the specific functions of these beads are, as soon as they appeared, the yin-yang sword used by Li Jing was immediately forced back dozens of centimeters. Frowning, Li Jing's face looked even worse. He didn't expect that these people had so many trump cards. Between their combined efforts, they had already posed such a great threat to him. Before being suppressed by AI, it was also relying on the power of the cosmic cube. After saving Loki and others, by the way, he was transferred back from another different time and space. You must know that the method of using a divine artifact like the cosmic cube is not easy, not to mention the high consumption, just the harsh conditions for use alone. Li Jing can't use it again in a short time. And now, he had just appeared, and before he could fight the culprit AI for 300 rounds to decide life and death, he was actually restrained by these minions, or more precisely, he was restricted and suppressed. It was simply too much. Since you want to die so much, then I will fulfill your wish. Li Jing's voice was extremely cold, and he suddenly took back the yin-yang sword that had been in a stalemate. Destroy. When he looked up, the pattern in Li Jing's eyes had changed to the pupil of all things. Kaka, the formation space that was extremely stable before, was now covered with cracks like fragile glass. The cracks moved around, and in just a breath, they had covered the area where Moya was. Be careful. Too late. Kaka bang, a series of crisp sounds, mixed with a sound of collapse. The woman Moya didn't even have time to scream, and she had already disappeared with the annihilation of space, leaving nothing behind. Oh, the only thing that could be left was a fiery red bead covered with fine lines. This bead also survived in the inky black power of nothingness, but it seemed that it had reached its end and was likely to break at any time. Moya. Damn it. With the loss of one of the 4, the Duokang formation collapsed, but before the other 3 could vent their anger, Li Jing's next attack had already come close. Starlight extinction. Boom. With a scream, Cass's entire body exploded like a bomb, and the body fell apart, with the silver flames burning endlessly. Not to mention reuniting and recovering again, not even a cell tissue could survive. Cass. Tovi's face was distorted, not because of Cass's death, but because he and the others had no power to fight back. 2 of them died in just a moment, and their bodies were gone. So, would it be his turn next time? Kigaku, you're looking for death. A spear came against the wind, and Li Jing returned with a sword. Dang, the black spear was blocked, and Yisai's face became even uglier, because the ghost smoke on his weapon was once again wiped out by the opponent's strange flame. Humphrey, I've been waiting for you, Yisai, but your reaction is really slow. You didn't know to come to rescue until 2 of your men died. Do you think I should say that you are too stupid, or should I say that you are blind? Standing with the sword horizontally, Li Jing's mouth corners slightly raised. Arrogant. It's not your turn to point fingers at what I do, Jingjai. That's it. Die. Yisai's eyes burst into red light, and his body moved closer to Li Jing again. Dang, another harsh metal knocking sound. Yisai obviously didn't care about the damage to his weapon, he just wanted to kill the person in front of him immediately at his feet. Li Jing fought back casually, and secretly glanced at the corner of his mouth at Yisai's Chinese, which was more fluent than his. No matter how good you are at foreign languages, you will die here today. Chapter 223, Battle of Giants. Dang dang dang. Yi Sai and Li Jing kept fighting, going up to the sky and down to the ground, and in a blink of an eye they were already fighting each other. The two were so fast that no one in the crowd watching the battle could see clearly. Boom boom boom. Sonic booms and gas explosions were heard continuously. The fierce battle between the two made everyone present feel nervous. Moreover, there was an inexplicable sense of yearning in their hearts. This yearning was for their strength and for their free-spirited fighting and killing. Men, how many of them would not yearn for the battlefield where they shed their blood? This kind of manly sentiment is the inheritance mark of human beings that goes deep into their bones, and it is a genetic mark that can never be erased. Ha, ha, boom. A strong explosion, accompanied by a strong shock wave. Yi Sai and Li Jing retreated together, hundreds of meters away. At this distance, it only takes a moment to fight again. The true form of the ghost zombie. The devil is reborn. The battle escalated, and the bodies of the two people underwent tremendous changes. Li Jing had long hair hanging down his back, and a black line appeared between his eyebrows. His face became more severe, and his figure became taller and slender. With a thought, the nano-level protective suit outside his body automatically retracted, revealing the Hades armor inside. The Hades armor, which was as black as ink, was an overall armor that could protect 90% of the body. There were many scales on the armor, and more than 10 sharp thorns made it more ferocious. It can be seen that this was a combat armor specially made for the battlefield. As for Yi Sai, he also changed greatly at this time. Not only was the blood-red light in his eyes more intense, his face was even more pale like a corpse, and 2 sharp teeth appeared at the corners of his mouth. As for his armor, it changed like flowing water at this time, becoming a real blood-red and black fighting weapon, with 2 ghosts entangled on his shoulders and a gluttonous meal on his chest. A strong and unrestrained fierce aura suddenly burst out from his body. Boom boom. Without any extra nonsense, without any words of ceremony, 2 sound explosions came, and Li Jing and Yi Sai immediately fought together again. This time, there was another huge change compared to before. The people present could not see the figures of the two people clearly, and even the slightest afterimage could not be seen. Damn, are these two guys still human? They are really perverted. Tony pressed his eyebrows and couldn't help complaining. It seemed that he had forgotten the previous dangers and almost died. No one answered Tony's nonsense, because they had already fixed their eyes on the battle in the air. Although they couldn't see what was happening at all, they couldn't help but watch and imagine, and couldn't bear to divert their attention. Heavenly devil devouring god. Yi Sai stepped back and appeared, suddenly throwing the spear in his hand into the air. The black spear rotated in the air, and the speed was getting faster and faster. In just a short moment, it turned into a black tornado. Go! Yi Sai pointed casually, and the tornado enveloped Li Jing directly, and it was still expanding in the middle. HMPH, nether fire. Li Jing's pupils moved, and sparks burst out, forming a huge green fire dragon from the air. As the fire dragon moved, it pounced directly at the oncoming tornado. The reason why the nether fire was used was because Li Jing saw clearly that Yi Sai's tornado looked like wind, but in fact it was composed of thousands of ghosts and ghosts. If energy was used alone to deal with such ghosts, it would be useless no matter how the attributes of the attack were changed. Boom! There was a loud bang, and as expected, the tornado composed of ghosts was entangled by the nether fire. For a while, the roars and screams that ordinary people could not hear were endless. Thousands of ghosts showed ferocious faces and bared their teeth and claws, but they became wilted after just a few breaths. However, when this happened, Yi Sai in the distance was not discouraged, but suddenly smiled coldly. Li Jing felt bad, but he had no time to dodge. A sudden spear appeared behind him without knowing when, and penetrated him with his armor, and with a muffled groan, the penetration wound was nothing. The strange smoke contained in the spear entered the body, and those ghosts and monsters immediately burst out, and began to quickly devour Li Jing's internal organs. Ha ha, told Jingjai. You are too careless. You are not the only one who possesses the space method. It's just a small feint. I didn't expect you to lose in such a small matter. Don't worry, you have no way out and will die if you are devoured by the ghost. Yi Sai sneered and stood with his hands behind his back. He really didn't expect to achieve his goal so easily, and it was still. Swish with a light sound. Yi Sai lowered his head to dodge, but was still cut by the sudden sharp blade on his neck. If it weren't for the habit he developed from years of fighting and his quick reaction, then this would be enough to be taken off by someone. Kigaku? Yi Sai covered the wound on his neck and retreated quickly. It's just a little trick. I didn't expect you really couldn't see it. Li Jing smiled slightly, and with a thought, the split body pierced by the spear in the distance turned into a pool of dust and dirt in just a breath, and drifted away with the wind. Yi Sai's face was extremely ugly. The other party's words were originally imitating him. This was simply a naked irony. Stop talking nonsense. What does a moment of pride count for? Yi Sai stretched out his hand, and the black spear automatically flew into his hand. Come on, between you and me, today must be a matter of life and death. Snap. Yi Sai took the spear, and the violent momentum of his body was brewing again, and Li Jing in the distance was the same, and the battle between the two was staged again. Boom boom, the strong air wave rolled, covering the sky and reaching the sky. Violent energy burst, and two huge monsters hundreds of feet high suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Boom boom, two giants fell to the ground, splashing up smoke and dust that covered the sky. One side was Li Jing's Black Warrior, and the other side was Yi Sai's Soul Zombie King. Without any words, the two giants had already collided with each other, and the huge power exploded. It was simply the collapse of the sky and the earth, and the end of the world. Boom, the ground collapsed deeply, and the clouds were shaken away. The battle between the two giants made the people in the sky stare at it, and their hearts were shocked. Is this fucking still human? The space carrier, through the satellite transmission of some pictures, although not very clear, can also distinguish what happened. Fury didn't think there was anything wrong with the swearing of his soldiers, because he was thinking the same thing at the moment. Is this fucking still human? Fury, who was serious, couldn't help but ask himself again. I would like to recommend this book to my friends. The Leisurely Daily Life of God is a heartwarming story about a lazy boy who lives a leisurely and happy daily life as a god. This book has performed very well and the author's writing style is also quite good. Friends who are interested may wish to take a look. Please support me. Thank you. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 224, A Bunch of Death Gods. In the previous inexplicable attack, not only did half of New York City disappear, but even the national forces suffered heavy losses. The land forces alone lost as many as tens of thousands, not to mention the large number of weapons and equipment and combat readiness resources. The fighter jets lost also numbered over 1,000, and other important supplies were countless. These losses were indeed extremely serious. Although a country's reserves were far more than this number, it urgently needed time to allocate and transport them. Once the connection chain that was originally used to delay time was broken, even a very developed country like the United States could not make emergency dispatches in a short time. What's more, the disappearance of New York City has shown far more adverse effects than this. New York, the country's largest city, has a population of nearly 10 million. This city is a world-class city, a luxurious city with too many legendary colors and the world's best. The power of AI's attack directly caused the city to lose millions of people, and also made this large city that could influence the world's economy and finance directly become a historical text carrier. It has to be said that the loss is too great. It is simply incalculable. Because of this extremely bad impact, the World Federation Conference has to be held again urgently, and the target is still the initiator of the New York incident, which is a major threat to the whole world. Li Jing, and Loki have all been included in the world blacklist, and they must be eliminated as soon as possible and forever. Even Thor and Tony and a group of people have been included in the final cleanup plan. The World Federation seems to be uprooting all the existences in the New York incident and forming a group to eradicate them. Boss, this is the latest news. Humphrey. Boom. After forcing AI's attack back again, Li Jing sneered, What a World Federation conference! When there is something wrong, they know how to keep warm together. But when there is nothing wrong, they are still fighting internally. This is a group of idle people who can't rest at all. As I said, the inheritance hidden deep in the bones of human beings is the desire for knowledge and exploration. With this desire, the progress and development of mankind also depends on it as a support. With such desires, how could humans really be idle and stagnant? So even if there are no external enemies, humans will seek civil war. This is nature, inevitable, and it is all for survival or better survival. There is no need to say anything else. Die! Yisai shouted loudly. Standing on the head of the 100-foot giant, the red light in his eyes became colder. With a thought, the energy spear in the giant's hand was raised and directly covered the black warrior's head. Boom! With a loud bang, Li Jing controlled the black warrior's giant sword to stand horizontally, and blocked Yisai's attack again. The battle between the two has lasted for several hours. It is obvious that the previous fight has evolved into a battle of energy and endurance. For combat power like Li Jing and Yisai, the higher the level, the more difficult it is to distinguish the winner, because both sides have too many trump cards. If it is not an overwhelming and crushing advantage, it will produce this kind of long-term battle that consumes each other's energy. It is natural and inevitable, unless there is an unexpected event that can instantly reverse the situation of the war. Otherwise, this war of attrition will not be known until when it will stop. Buzz buzz buzz! A series of roars came suddenly from far away. Boss, the planes have arrived, a total of 6, and each plane carries airdropped nuclear warheads. Well, have you notified Loki and the others? They have already run far away, boss. Yes, Li Jing nodded slightly. After the plane's return attack incident, coupled with the nuclear weapons being controlled in various places, now all countries have learned their lesson and use the old-fashioned planes that have been eliminated to choose to directly airdrop and bomb New York. The ability of the Sky Eye is strong and can control any electronic product that is lower than it. But for these old-fashioned, scrap iron, and only basic flying capabilities, there is really no way, because they are just a group of iron lumps that can only fly. But this is also good, just what Li Jing wants. In case of nuclear bomb explosion, he has at least 5 trump cards that can allow him to safely avoid the threat of nuclear weapons, and the stalemate with Yisai can also be broken by this method. Yisai, this character is indeed the strongest opponent that has appeared so far, much stronger than Akaya Madara. For a while, Li Jing really has no way to deal with him with the trump cards in his hand. Although the shrinking ray gun has a powerful ability, its slow speed is not enough for the speed of a strong man like Yisai. It is estimated that before the ray attack arrives, that time is enough for Yisai to attack back and forth countless times. The same is true for the nanoworms. Although the control ability is high, it is unknown how much suppression ability it has for a character like Yisai, and the speed is too slow, so there is no time to implement it. As for the rest, Li Jing found that the only ability that can kill with one blow is the ability of the Universal Eye. He has never encountered such a strong opponent before, and now it has just appeared. He thought he had a lot of trump cards before, but now it seems so pitiful and rare. Whoosh! At a height of several thousand meters, 6 old-fashioned planes glided past one after another, and what was left behind were several iron lumps in free fall. These iron lumps were the ultimate weapons that could instantly destroy everything in existence. Nuclear bombs. Speed up, damn it. The nuclear bomb fell, and the pilot Mike suddenly increased the speed of the plane to the maximum. There was no other way. He had been flying for more than 10 years, and this was the first and only time he did such a crazy thing. That was a nuclear bomb, and there was more than one. Listening to the previous discussions of those who dropped the plane, they said that there was also a hydrogen bomb with a T/N/T equivalent of tens of millions of tons hidden in it. Tens of millions of tons. What is that concept? If you want to survive, then run away quickly, otherwise that kind of ghost thing will explode. Who can survive safely within its radiation range? Whoosh! The strong wind blew, and the nuclear bombs fell straight down. There were a total of 6. After many discussions, the World United Conference has invested enough money this time, and will never give up until the goal is achieved. It can be imagined that a nuclear bomb of 10 tons is enough to destroy a large island, not to mention 6 of them stacked together, and there is a huge terrifying thing hidden among them. Li Jing and Yi Sai stopped fighting at the same time and looked up at the sky, where a bunch of death gods were descending quickly. Chapter 225 Shadow Sewing Needle. TNT, trinitrotylbenzene, refers to the relatively safe yellow explosive. It is a powerful explosive. Because of the unique stability of refined TNT, its application is also very extensive. Even the power of nuclear bombs is generally described and calculated in terms of TNT equivalent. 1 kilogram of TNT explosives can generate 4.2 million joules of energy, and 1 ton of TNT can generate 4,183 megajoules of energy. As for tens of millions of tons of TNT explosives, the energy value generated by the explosion is probably something that no one would not be terrified of. Not only this direct destructive power, nuclear explosions, whether it is the hundreds of millions of degrees of high temperature generated instantly, or the strong nuclear radiation generated after the explosion, these are enough to carry out an inhumane massacre of any living organism. Hundreds of millions of degrees of high temperature, compared to the 15 million temperature at the center of the sun, is nothing at all. Nuclear radiation. I am afraid that after today, New York City will really become an absolute dead place where no grass grows. Boom. 6 nuclear bombs. A bang. The enormous energy was fully released in just less than a second. The light covered the sky, and the energy exploded completely. Mushroom cloud. Shock wave. One rises into the sky, one spreads. Nothing can stop their actions. The ground triggers an earthquake. The soil cracks and is crystallized by high temperature in an instant. Smoke and dust cover the sun, and nuclear dust reaches tens of kilometers in the sky. This is a disaster, a man-made huge disaster. Under the raging wind, with the shockwave spreading to a range of hundreds of kilometers in diameter, the high temperature of hundreds of thousands of degrees plows the land that has long been empty over and over again. 1 minute, such a huge change, is completed in just 1 minute. And the harm after the nuclear explosion will occupy this place for decades, or even hundreds of years. Whoosh. Thick smoke rolling, scorching high temperature, nuclear dust raging, radiation everywhere. In this extremely harsh environment, ordinary people will die if they don't think they can last more than 10 seconds. But at this moment, 2 figures suddenly appeared here. Li Jing and Yi Sai both used energy to protect their bodies. In such a place, no matter how strong their bodies were, they dared not be negligent or careless. Kigaku, is this also part of your plan? Unfortunately, you can't defeat me at all, not to mention using this kind of external force. Yi Sai's eyes flashed red, and it seemed that he was not affected by the previous nuclear explosion, and he was not even hurt at all. Really? I don't think this is a waste without any effect. Li Jing smiled slightly, as if he was sure of victory, and at the same time indirectly admitted that this nuclear explosion was related to him. Indeed, Yu Du Xiangyun, a member of the rookie team, had already obeyed Li Jing's arrangement before, and used nanoworms to change his appearance. Together with other members of the team, he successfully mixed into the governments of various countries. In this nuclear explosion attack, they played a vital and indispensable role in promoting it. At least, nearly half of the credit came from them. Li Jing did this not only to test Yi Sai's trump card, but also to force the palace for the unknown guy who has never appeared. As long as this unknown existence is not eliminated, Li Jing will not be at peace. Even if he kills Yi Sai in front of him, it will be useless unless he withdraws in advance and leaves this 5th-level space-time with huge potential. This kind of escape is not what Li Jing wants. It's just one time, and he may feel that he is seeking a step back to a broader world, but what if it happens many times? If it becomes a habit, it is not the result that Li Jing hopes to see. What's more, there are other reasons for this nuclear explosion. It's just a trump card. I don't care about this kind of thing. Yi Sai looked ugly, and threw a strange crystal full of cracks on the ground. This thing is obviously the treasure he used to resist the nuclear explosion before, but now it seems to be a useless waste. Really? Then I'd like to see how many life-saving tools you still have. Li Jing kept smiling, but the look in his eyes had turned extremely cold. and he once again took out the yin-yang sword fan from his hand. Yisai, although he had mixed some time and space abilities in his previous attacks, Li Jing had already discovered that Yisai himself did not have space abilities, and now it seems that this speculation has been confirmed. You are still far away from wanting my life. Hey! Yisai raised his arms, and the energy around him suddenly burst out. Even the raging wind around him was torn apart, forming a blank area with a diameter of 100 meters. Boom boom! Yisai and Li Jing each stepped on the ground, and the crystal ground immediately cracked. In an instant, the two of them moved and fought again in this harsh environment. Gusts, high temperatures, radiation, fighting, such a scene, but no one saw it again. The power of the previous nuclear explosion was so great that the nuclear dust that covered the sky had already completely blocked the satellite's shooting angle, and Loki and others who were closest to this place were thousands of kilometers away at this time. Time passed slowly, and the dust and dirt that covered the sky and the sun slowly settled down. The environment in this area was still as bad as hell. It was estimated that in the next few decades, this place would be a restricted area for any biological activities. The battle between Yisai and Li Jing continued. So far, the two have fought for several hours, and the attacks of both sides have not weakened, and there are even signs of intensification. Dang dang dang! The sharp blades collided, and the sound of metal was piercing. Li Jing's hands did not stop. With a thought, several black shadows split from his feet. The black shadows appeared without making a sound, and disappeared into the ground in a breath. Kigaku, die! Yisai's face was ferocious. Regardless of the damage to the spear in his hand, he raised it and suddenly covered Li Jing's head. Ah! Li Jing stepped on the ground with his feet, holding the weapon horizontally. Dang! Sparks flew and the sharp blade trembled. The force of Yisai's attack was so great that Li Jing's lower body was sunk into the ground. Ah! Boom! Li Jing exhaled, and the chi force burst out. With his body as the center, all the soil was lifted up and flew into the air. Yin Dun, Shadow Seal Threading Needle. Yin Dun, Shadow Seal Threading Needle. Yin Dun, Yin Dun snap, 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 snap. 4 humanoid black shadows suddenly appeared in 4 directions. The black shadows finished their seals and put their hands together. For a moment, thousands of shadows rushed towards Yisai's direction. Kai! This attack was too sudden. Most of Yisai's attention was attracted by Li Jing himself. A large number of shadows pierced each other and surrounded Yisai. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.